Ow. Welcome everyone. Thank you to I always have to do it first. Thanks to the great Stone Loki, my good buddy and master of Valhalla, for that opening and that intro. He is the man. Thank you, sir, wherever you happen to be tonight. Hello everyone. Welcome to Clobberin Times, Open Geek and Talk for issue number YouTube 54, all in all 754 and let's see who has popped in with the early birds here. The great Eric K, Master of Wrenches, Supreme Master of Wrenches, indeed. Eric K is the man, and of course, Doug Oberg. Hey, buddy, good to see you. Jake D, I thought you were doing a show. I saw you were doing one. Maybe you just finished it, but one about The Stand, the new series. Incidentally, Jake D and the channels of many others of great YouTubers here, who are a lot of us just getting started, are in my description below. I want to point anyone to that. From my great buddies at Retro Blasting, who have a wonderful channel, to Jake D, his link's in there. My buddy Vigilante Williamson, I put his in there now. Of course, Latino Slant, the great Paulie, who I was wrenching for earlier, who is doing some X-Files tonight, and many other. There's Vigilante. Speak of the Vigilante. And many other channels to some wonderful people. Stephanie Janizek, who joined me the other night. I love her. She's fantastic. And her link is in there. So please check all of those channels out, all those fine channels. And I would really appreciate that. Let's see here. Mark with a C. Yeah, tonight I have with me a very special pal who's been with me, ridden a shotgun with me on many occasions. The great Mark C is here. And now we have Mark with a C in the chat. One of these days, we're going to find out who is the Mark, who is the C, who is the Mark with a C, and who is the great Mark C. And now I'm so confused. I don't know who's what, but I want to say hello to my old bud, to Mark C. How are you, my friend?
I am good. Happy holidays, everyone. And I think there's plenty of room going around for a Mark C and a Mark with a C. I think we can both coexist. Although I asked that he change his name to, I don't know, like Eugene or something, so we don't get confused all the time.
Well, he does at least spell it, his Mark, different from yours there. So yeah, there's that, as the kids say. And again, I hope everyone's having a wonderful, simply having a wonderful Christmas time. I know people like to say Happy Holidays, and I like saying Christmas. But
Merry Christmas
and Happy Holidays. Well, Happy Holidays is cool. I just like adding the Christmas part because fuck the war on Christmas.
Absolutely.
Now I've got let's see here again. I want to thank this past what night was that now? It was Tuesday, wasn't it? Yes. Tuesday night, the great Paulie from Latino Slant, who is filing some X's tonight on his great channel, came up with an idea that I've done it in years past on Mel's show, but I just forget about it. But December 15th is, of course, a date which will live in infamy because it is the premiere date in 1978. It's what's that? I'm hearing something in the background there. You got a microphone going on there?
To me? No.
Yeah. I'm hearing things every time.
The
I
only
talk.
thing I've got going right now is the air conditioning. I don't know if you hear that'd be the only thing.
No, it's not that. Let's see. Anyone hearing anything? No, it's maybe I don't know. It could have been my microphone, or maybe there's just microphones.
It'll be up to the chat because I don't hear anything.
No, I don't.
Speaking of which, your microphone, it might be the mic rubbing up against my shirt. I can sit here and hold it. Or
oh no, man! If you got one on your shirt, that's cool. Now I'm not hearing it. So who knows?
Well, yeah, because I'm holding it up in the air.
Does it normally hang from your shirt?
Yeah, normally we do this. It's down here like this. Does this make any difference down here with me moving around?
Yeah, now I hear it.
Little static might happen from time to time as I move my head.
Yes. Now that you mentioned that, when it was just like a shuffling sound, and then when you were holding it away, but that's cool. We'll live, man. Yeah.
I can hold it in my right hand. I can draw with my left, so we're good.
Oh, okay. He's drawing, ladies and gentlemen. That's what you get when you get an artist with you. He's going to be drawing, man. That's pretty cool. We'd like to see some of your art, probably, if you would show some of it later. But anyway, Tuesday night, we had a little impromptu show. Paula just said, "Hey, man, it's the 42nd anniversary of, in my opinion, the greatest superhero movie ever made." I know it's not shared by everyone. Superman the movie, 1978, and so we had a great time hanging out. And me getting texted without turning my damn number down. What is that? Oh, yeah, that was Paulie actually texting me. Oh man, I don't think he knew I was on. Anyway, he did a show earlier, but I think he was referring to something that we did earlier. But it was a great idea he had, and we had a lot of fun. I love that film, and I just wanted to thank him for that and everyone who turned out for that. And of course, Stephanie Janisek Monday night was here. We talked. She is my Star Wars go-to insider, and we talked a lot of Star Wars, and that was a lot of fun. I appreciate her. This Saturday night, the wonderful, magnificent Raquel Briggs will be joining me to just, again, sort of like a Christmassy. We love Star Trek. She and I are going to be doing a Star Trek show every Saturday night starting in January. But this Saturday night, we will announce that. But we also basically talk about, well, something that we both love very much and that we're very passionate about. We love Star Trek, only 1966 to 2005, because nothing after that is legitimate Star Trek. And we'll be talking about why we love Star Trek and a lot of our memories and things like that. Just kind of chill out and have a good time talking some Trek. And then, of course, we'll make an announcement what we're going to do. Now, this Monday night, initially, we were talking about, Mark and I were talking about doing one of our famous comic book reviews, like review a certain series or saga or something like that, which we have done a good while back with the Alex Ross series Justice. But we are still gonna do it, Mark. The Walt Simonson Thor run from the early '80s, which is a classic, and but I'm not gonna have a chance to read that thing yet, so I've got to pull it on the back burner. But since it is going to be a long, very busy week next week for me for Christmas and stuff, Monday will be my last show before Christmas, and I think I'm just going to call it Monday's show. I'll do like I always do every year with my show, like a little Christmas party. It's just going to be Christmas with the superheroes. And because that's how we roll around here. We're a comic, at heart, we're a Star Trek, but also a comic book channel.
Maybe you could go through like some of the really cool genre of merchandise that is on the market for this year's Nerd to Collect.
We could. I was thinking I'm going to do. It's going to be a Christmas themed show where we talk about Christmas themed comics and other Christmas themed geek shows and movies and stuff like that. But that's something
even better. One of my favorite comics of all time is a Christmas themed comic.
Oh yeah, you are of course more than welcome to join me for that. If awesome. You are available,
Thank you.
Bud. In fact, I put tonight because I'd like to see some of your art as well. Some Christmas comic book art on display there. I love this one. By Alex Ross right here. That is just what it says it all. Steve Mitchum, the topic is no top. Well, we have topics we're going to cover, but there's no specific. We're doing open geek talk, so we're going to throw a few things at you.
Think of Craig Ferguson tearing up the notes and throwing them to the side. That's the show.
I've been doing that for forever on my show. Jake D, good point. I try, man, but I forget things, and I get to use the "I'm old" excuse. See, like I always tell people, when you get old, the only benefit,
it's senility.
Yeah, it's definitely that, and the only advantage to getting old is being able to say two things: "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm old," or you can vary it to "I'm too old for this shit," which is my favorite. So. Anyway.
My favorite is the older I get, the more it gives me an excuse to say completely improper and inappropriate things and get away with it.
I love what the great Blackadder said when he said, "I want to be young and wild, and then I want to be middle-aged and rich, and then I want to be old and annoy people by pretending that I'm deaf." That all works. So anyway, where were I? Mark was telling me about a piece of artwork he has done. You want to show that to the gang just for the hell of it? So show some of the art?
It's in your Twitter DMs.
Yeah, but I didn't want to do it without your permission. It's your art.
Oh, no. You can share.
All right. We ought to quiz the chat, see if they know who this character is. You want to see if they know, because it's an obscure one. Yeah, let's see how ridiculously geeky our chat is. I bet somebody's going to get this one. We don't have a big crowd right now, but this is a fine piece of art from our bud Mark C.
It was a doodle.
It's a doodle. It's a doodle to him, but
I wouldn't call it a fine piece of art, but I would call it a nice doodle, a nice colored doodle.
I certainly like it, man. And here we go. Let's see. Beep, 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 beep. Let me make that a little bit bigger. As soon as this thing cooperates. All right, sirs.
Yeah, you're showing your whole screen right now. I hope you don't have anything.
Yeah. Oh my God! They're gonna see all my porn contacts. Holy shit! Here we go.
There you go.
Boomer. We boom. Paulie, by the way, I got to make fun of me for boomering the other night when we started the show, and then he boomered one tonight. But as a nice pal, I'm not going to tell everybody what he did. So, just the fact that he did it, so I get to pick on him. And he's younger than me. So anyway, but I love that man. Paulie's cool. So anyone know who this is? And if anyone says the guy on the Quaker Oats box, I'm reaching.
You're
through
fired. You're fired.
You're fired. You're fired if you say that. Here we go. Let's see if we get some guesses. Oh man, I knew Doug would get it. Solomon Kane. Yeah, there you go, man. Solomon Kane.
I do a lot of traveling. And I have a lot of these streaming apps loaded on my phone, and I generally work nights because I work in. They consider me a frontline worker. I work in telecommunications, and we do power work. So, like, we put in power equipment that runs all the other equipment, that all your internet and mobile calls, and if you have a landline, that to all go through. And I do it for AT&T, Verizon. Charter, Comcast, Time Warner, you name it. I've been in their office and I've done work for them. But anyway, so while I travel, a lot of times I'll have something in the background just to kind of keep the eyes open, because I'll go from city to city. Even when I travel at night. And the other day I was just like, God bless. You know what I haven't seen in a long time? And you know what it was? It was Midnight's Edge doing that Robert E. Howard Conan. It was like a 2-hour interview with a guy who currently holds the rights to the thing, and I think he's in like Sweden or something. And they did a really great interview, and it kind of covers like the history of this guy owning the property. And I got done with that. It was like, you know what? I haven't watched in a long time. Is that Solomon Kane film with James Purfoy, which is actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was okay. I liked it. It's been a while.
Well, it puts its own little thing, because they kind of feel like they need to give Solomon Kane a real origin, which I don't know that Howard ever did.
No, and it's not necessary, but yeah.
But anyway, it becomes kind of the crux of the story as well, and because of that, I found it an enjoyable movie. It's not completely true to the character, but true enough. And And anyway, so I threw it on and I was watching it. So when I got to the hotel room and I checked in, that was the first thing I started to draw. And
no, excellent. I got one of those. Of course, there's Marvel's done some comics here and there. There've been comics, but I've got one of those. I can't remember. Maybe it was in the late '90s or so when they started doing these compilations that were taken all from Howard stories, and these they're not like the size of paperback books, but they are paperbacks a little bit, sort of like trade paperback size. They did a bunch of Conan stories and Bran McMorn and Solomon Kane. I think I got a couple of the one whatever they only did one of them.
Are these the actual Howard stories, or are these the comic books?
It's the Howard stories.
Okay, like the novels themselves.
Yeah,
the short stories. Okay,
the short stories. Yeah, not the L. Sprague de Camp ones. If you talk to Howard fans, they don't like that name too much, or Lynn Carter. But did you now? Of course, did you ever get a chance, or would you ever want to go to Cross Plains, Texas? Anyone know what's there? I know you know what's there.
Yep.
You know, Claude did that son of a bitch.
Yeah, I know. I saw the pictures.
Yeah.
He had him on his Facebook page.
Yeah. For those who don't know, in Cross Plains, Texas, where Robert E. Howard was from, with Two Gun Bob was from, his house is still preserved there as the Robert E. Howard Museum. And a buddy of ours went. You can go and you can make appointments to go there. It's really off the beaten path up in Cross Plains, and you can make. And when Claude went there, he saw some pictures of people who had visited. One of them was Bruce Boxleitner, who turns out he's a big Howard fan. And obviously Roy Thomas has been there, and a lot of people, but there was some, that kind of, he was shocked to see that. A lot of Howard fans out there, of course.
Yeah. In fact, I got to meet Frank Frazetta's son at a comic book show because Frazetta had already passed. And it's one of the reasons I don't enjoy celebrating my birthday is because I have, everybody has heroes or people that they admire that have, within their lifetime. And as a gearhead, I'm a big fan I'm a Mustang guy. I'm a Ford Mustang guy. So Carroll Shelby is kind of like a bit of a hero of mine. And then, of course, as an artist, Frank Frazetta is absolutely a hero of mine. Both of them died on May 10th. I know this well because that is my birthday. Wow. And so don't celebrate my birthday too often. But anyway, there was a painting that it was actually a redo. And it's one of the few times that I've actually liked a redo that Frazetta did over one of his originals, because he redid several of his paintings. And it's Conan the Destroyer. And that redo of him just kind of with the axe in the air and the shield down, just taking on just hundreds of mongrel looking dudes is probably one of the coolest images of Conan I have ever seen.
Yeah. And gotta love Frazetta, buddy. I met his wife or his granddaughter. I met her at Dragon Con. They had a table. But of course, again, it was way later. My buddy Steve Mitchum, he has a couple of Mustangs. He's got he's got a. Aren't yours? Don't you have a 266 Mustangs, dude, or is it the one? I can't remember now what year. It's a 66 or something like that. But Doug, I've never been to the Frazetta Art Museum. Have you? I would love to go. That would be a road trip and a half, huh?
Yeah, I remember when they set that up. I thought for a while they had to close it. In fact, I know for right now because of COVID, it is closed. Yeah, but no, I thought it had financial trouble. There was a period there, I guess about 3 or 4 years ago, where the kids were fighting over the paintings because what was it? They had one. I want to say it was one of the John Carter ones sell at auction recently. Wow. For like what, $1.5 million, and that's just one painting. It might have been the Princess of Mars one. I think it sold for over. I know it sold for well over $1 million, like 1.3, $1.5 million. So with that in mind, any one of these paintings he's one of the few I would say genre painters or genre artists who has actually been accepted by the fine art world. And
wow. Oh my God, I'm jealous of Doug.
It's for reals.
I'm jealous of Doug. Man, he was back in 2001. He got to go to the art museum. That's fantastic. To be Frazetta's a god. There's no question about it.
Yeah, if you've never seen the documentary Painting with Fire, you're missing out. It's on YouTube. I highly recommend you check it out. I have both it on DVD and on Blu-ray.
He is the man. He was just unbelievable. Oh yeah, again, yes, a 64 and a half and a 66 is those two Mustangs and Mark with us. He has a 67 coupe. That's cool stuff. Now we got to get to something that I should have got to at the beginning. I'm sorry, I forgot everyone, but we have had another passing from the Star Wars mythos. We'll just pay a little bit of respect to this gentleman because for the second time in a couple of weeks, one of our people, from one of our favorite things, Star Wars, has passed on, and Mr. Jeremy Bulloch, please rest in peace, sir. The original Boba Fett,
the
Boba Fett, folks. He played him, and he's also played other roles. Of course, he's also been in a lot of stuff. Actually, David Prowse, who sadly passed a couple of weeks ago, is similar in a sense. Both of them played the physical role of a character that was voiced by someone else. But this is a legendary character so many people love. They love Boba Fett, and this is the gentleman. He's also been on Doctor Who and made like a bunch of old British shows. He was a British actor, and I don't think I got to meet him, but I know many friends who have, and many of the people who have met this gentleman have often raved about how nice he is, or how nice he was, and what a good cordial chap he was. And
he's an absolute gentleman. I've had the pleasure, and
nice.
Back in I think about '97, he was an absolute gentleman, and one of those guys really doesn't take for granted the fact that a character that he had the fortune to just step into a costume and be on screen for a very short period of time. Amazed at how much people seem to have gravitated to the character. And he's actually, because I checked his IMDb, he has another role in either Empire or Jedi as an Imperial officer, but he's not credited for it. Is it Empire? Yeah, he's not credited for it. But I know I've seen him in the suit.
Yeah, he's the guy who was pulling Leia as she's yelling at Luke it's a trap at the end, in Bespin at the end. And he was also in Revenge of the Sith for a second as a pilot or something like that. And of course, he's been on Doctor Who. He was in the Time Warrior, the first episode of John Pertwee's last season. The first story featuring the wonderful Liz Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith. And it was also the first one with Santarans, and also the first time we learned that the Doctor is from the planet Gallifrey. A lot of firsts in that episode, and Jerry Bulloch was in that one, and that's one of my favorite Pertwee episodes.
He was also, was it Smith? God, I can't remember the name now. There's a black actor who played him in the Pierce Brosnan era, but he was in 3 of the Roger Moore Bond movies. And 2 of them, he played the same character. He was a recurring character who I think was either an assistant to M or assistant to Q.
Yeah. Wow. I've heard he was in those, but I wasn't sure who he played on those. So man, imagine this guy's been in. He's been in Star Wars, he's been in Doctor Who and Bond, and a lot of other things, and just a genuinely good dude from everyone who's talked about him. I think I was at a con that he was at one time, but it's just been so long, I don't think I got to meet him. But only 75 years old.
Sadly, it's in the mid to late aughts. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and that's what I think actually got him, was complications due to his to the Parkinson's illness that he carried. And he will be missed. He'll definitely be missed.
Yeah, let's see here. One of my friends had it was talking about, cool, man. I'm sorry, I thought that was. Let's see, Eric. Okay, oh my goodness, man. Hey, 32 flavors of Nick Weiser. Hello there, my friend. Thanks for popping in. It's good to see you, buddy. So just again, a fine gentleman and a beloved part of a beloved franchise for so many people. And rest in peace, Jeremy Bulloch. And thank you for all you've done for all, not only for all your fans. And I think that's about it. Thank you so much, sir. And Well, Hyperspeed. I was about to say Warp Speed, but that would be a different franchise. Um,
We also have some birthdays today. Some geek birthdays.
oh, we have some geek birthdays? Man, I like geek
I'd say,
birthdays.
yep. For those of you out there who are fans of the Ghostbusters franchise, I believe Mr. Ernie Hudson is today is his birthday.
He's a nice guy.
He's a very nice guy. And as well as Bill Pullman. Today is his birthday. Mr. President and Lone Star himself was born on this day. Yeah. And in not so great news, someone who we could really have done without. Ryan Johnson's birthday was today as well. So I hope the candles caught the house on fire.
Ruins Johnson. Oh, man. Someone posted a pretty funny, I don't know if it was a meme or just a statement saying that, did anyone else get the feeling that 2020 was directed by Ruins Johnson? Yes. So yeah, the director of my most hated movie of all time, Ruins Johnson. I'd say happy birthday, but I just wouldn't mean it. So I'm sorry, buddy. You'll have to get it from somewhere else and go screw yourself, by the way.
Did you see the supposed leaked plot treatment for what was supposed to be The Last Jedi that came from J.J. Abrams' camp?
I meant to.
The video?
I know the Doomcock did a video about that, right? I have not watched it yet. I've heard some things about it, so yeah, but I do mean to watch it. I just haven't got a chance. It's 20-something longs, and I forgot. So yeah,
I will say that if this had been the movie, I would have so much more enjoyed that movie. And I'm not saying it redeems Jar Jar Abrams, but it gives me at least a thought that he might have actually had a clue of how to do this. And when it came to when it comes to I was going to say Force Awakens was a contrived rehash of The New Hope. But if you need to lay foundation to new characters, fine. It was a good story when I saw it the first time. It wasn't terrible when I saw it in The Force Awakens. But where they were going to go with it was actually going to be a hell of a lot more interesting. And Luke would have been a lot more integral aid to the story. Wouldn't have been a punk. And would have wound up been kind of a beautiful thing to have him in there. And by the time you get to Rise of Skywalker, it really makes me laugh to see how many people were upset or surprised that that movie was as bad as it was, because where was it going to go? That was half the reason why I was angry at The Last Jedi is you left nothing for a third movie, nothing. He's got nowhere to go. It doesn't matter who does the third movie. It's almost impossible to do a third movie because you closed all the plot threads. There's no place to go with this. It was DOA before anybody put pencil to paper to do a first draft on the script. I never saw. I laughed at everybody. It was like, oh, it's a piece of shit. It is a piece of shit, but I can't believe you actually had any kind of hope or doubt or doubts that it wasn't gonna be, because it was doomed. It was DOA. It was doomed to fail before it started.
Yeah, I don't agree with you about what you said about Force Awakens, but I totally agree with you about what you just said about no hope after Last Jedi. If you've had any hope after that one, I just don't get you. I mean, look, God bless you. I know you were just trying, but no way, because Force Awakens is an absolute horrible piece of shit that I hated from the beginning, but I get that a lot of people needed to let it soak in and realize it, and that's all fine and good. That's happened to me on stuff too. But even I was going into Last Jedi because I knew nothing about the film that much, other than what people are saying. I knew nothing about Ruins Johnson. So I was willing to go in and go, look, if he just picks up the pieces and we get to see Luke Skywalker be himself, as bad as what they did to Han Solo was, I'll be fair to the film and separate it from the last piece of shit. And so yes, there's no question about Last Jedi being worse. And I'm totally with you. After that, like you said, there's nowhere to go. Anything's going to feel like up to some people if they're being optimistic. But after The Last Dead guy, there's nothing you can do. I'm totally with you on that one, man. Let's see. But anyway, that movie depresses me. And happy birthday, not to you, Ryan Johnson. Go screw. Never mind. He's not even worth it. Fuck that motherfucker. But how about something Christmassy here for there we go. Christmas with the superheroes. Only Neil Adams could make Batman look good with a beard, with a Santa Claus beard. Oh, and I got one just for you, man.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. I'm sure you have this one. I remember this came out.
I never got that one.
Yeah, it was
special like Christmas collections that came out in the 80s and 90s. I generally, especially knowing that for the most part were kind of like reprints of, well, mostly stories that weren't a whole lot good. I generally left alone. The Treasury editions from Marvel back in the 70s, the Christmas Treasury editions, I think there was 3 of them. I've got 2 of them.
yeah.
And
2 or 3.
in fact, yeah, one of them contains probably my favorite Christmas story Marvel ever did, which was the Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. 11. It was drawn by Frank Springer, and has the hate monger. In fact, the cover's really cool because everybody's kind of hanging on a Christmas tree, and the faces are in Christmas ornaments. And that's probably my favorite Christmas book of all time, even though it's kind of like being the diehard of Christmas. There's not a whole lot of Christmas in it, but it was a good story.
Yeah. I hear you, man. I love Christmas comics. So here's one of my favorite covers, and I know you know why, Mr. Lopez. This actually has a Frank Miller story in it, with the first time he ever really drew Batman.
I think I have that story. About the time Dark Knight Returns in Year One came out, they did a reprint of both of them combined in a hardback.
Yeah,
and I think that Christmas story is in there. I have that hardback.
Yeah, that was back when you could actually maybe believe that Jonah Hex gave a shit about Christmas. I'm just saying. And so did Cain and Abel. Look at that. Even Sergeant Rock's like, what are all these damn superheroes doing around here? So. Merry Christmas, though. I love Christmas in comics. I mean, I love it when they combine them, too. Even that punce Alex Ross can do something good for Christmas, see? Well, but again, this one tells a Batman story right here, though. There you go.
It's
Christmas.
if you could do the Dickens story, Christmas Carol, with superheroes, you have to use Batman as Scrooge. You have to. I don't know any other way to do it. I really don't. He would be perfect.
Yeah. Remember what they said? Well, in that great episode of the called Comfort and Joy of the Justice League, the Bruce Timm versus Justice League, when they were which I really love. I watch that every Christmas. They're talking about how Batman practically begged for monitor duty.
Yeah.
And also the first actually episode produced of Batman animated series was Christmas with the Joker. It's not the first one they aired, but it's the first one they made. And what was that thing at the end when Dick Grayson's finally forcing him to watch It's a Wonderful Life? Yeah. And Bruce says, I never did want to watch that. Never could get past the title.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but when you get into the redo of the Batman the Animated Series, when they redid the designs, I think the first episode that aired on that was a Christmas episode. It was like three different stories in one. One was a Clayface one where Bullock is Santa, and Montoya is like his little helper elf, and one of the kids sits on his lap and says, "Please, Santa, bring my daddy home." "Well, who's your daddy?" And he goes, "Oh, geez, I just set that guy up the river not too long ago."
Yeah, and they did some. Now you talking about the Batman animated series comic?
No, this was an episode. It was an episode. Right. Had like three different. I think they did it as a comic.
They did it a comic. The comic came later, but they did a comic of it. That's right.
It was in the holiday special. That's right, with that great Mr. Freeze cover that made my list of best covers of all time. It's in that book.
Right. That's right.
But I remember there being a Christmas episode about. But my favorite part of the Justice League one is Hawkgirl bringing Green Lantern into what her Christmas tradition is, which is they go to this alien bar and basically pick a fight and get the shit beat out of each other.
Yeah. that was hilarious. That episode is absolutely brilliant. A lot of people put down on those first two seasons. I like them. And I But yes, no question they got better with Unlimited. But there were a lot of good ones in those first two seasons. And that
There
one,
was. I thought that by the end of the first season, they pretty well found their stride. I think they thought of Superman. They were too worried about making Superman a crutch, and in the process, wound up devaluing Superman for the series, at least for the first season. But I think, especially by the time that you get to the World War II three-parter at the end of season one, which is amazing. And everybody's in it. You got the Blackhawks, you got Sergeant Rock, you got, I think Haunted Tank is in it. You got a War Wheel, and it's amazing, awesome.
yeah,
They were pretty well hitting their stride. Everything was pretty much working on all cylinders at that point.
Doug Oberg, are you kidding me, dude? That's fantastic. 1994 Marvel Holiday Special. Downtime. A Nick Fury story by Howard Chaykin. I own all the pages of the original art. Jesus, dude.
That must have cost you a bloody fortune. Either that or you got them in the 80s and Chaykin just wanted to get rid of it.
You had to get them after in the 90s there when they came out. Yeah, back then. I mean, that's just.
Oh, yeah, 94. I'm sorry.
Man.
Yeah, because.
Wow, dude. Impressive, brother.
Because I've met Chaykin, and Chaykin's biggest fan is Chaykin. And I find that true of a lot of comic book artists, actually, and that's cool. I think you got to be a little bit of a narcissist to be a comic book artist. I really think you do. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with it.
I've been insulted by him, so it's fun.
Yeah.
Well, who hasn't really? But anybody who's met has probably. But that's incredible, though, isn't it? Wow, man. Nick. Yes, a lot of us feel the same way when we read Batman's voice. We were Kevin Conroy, and he's a really great dude. I met him once, and man, just as nice as he could be. It was really cool. I mean, you probably met him. Have you met him yet? Or
I've never had the pleasure. There was one. He was supposed to come to a comic convention about 3 years ago to New Orleans.
He did,
and the day that I went, he wound up canceling because he wasn't there. Because I remember looking for the day that he wasn't there, and Ron Garney was supposed to be there, and he had to bow out as well. And so I didn't get to meet immediately. I've met Ron Garney before. He's a super nice guy. But no, never got to meet Kevin. That would have been beautiful.
He was great, man. They wanted to make things a threat, so they. Well, yeah, I have a lot of. I love. Let's see, his JL. Well, not before JL Superman. The Superman animated series, which took me a long time to come to grips with. Vigilante Williamson, my friend. I've had Denny and Tim, whom I like a lot of the things they do, and I like their stuff. That show made Superman way too damn weak. You know how I picked on Byrne about it. Byrne was nothing like them. They made him an invalid sometimes, and it pissed me off. I love the show, don't get me wrong, but it sometimes really aggravated me. And on the Justice League cartoon, they started doing it a lot. And then an Unlimited came around. Alex Ross, who I think is a prick, but he loves Superman. It's told, I don't know if this is true or not, but he used to get on Bruce Timm about, man, you guys have got to start making Superman such a freaking wimp. And then you got that wonderful last episode with what he did to Darkseid, which I'm sure you all know, and that was classic. Oh, we lost R2. We lost Mark. So he should pop back in though. Yeah, he was far too weak. So you preferred Tim Daly's voice to George Newborn then? Hey man, lost you for a second there, bro.
Yep, that was my fault.
Gotcha. But so you like Daly's voice better than Newborn? A lot of people say that. I was fine with both of them, but I gotcha. I understand.
I thought both of them were fine. I think Newborn kind of settled into the role. It didn't hit it. I wasn't quite a fan all at once. As far as the underpowered thing, it wasn't just that they underpowered him. There's a nasty habit. This is one thing I've always had against Frank Miller's version of it, even besides the fact they make him a government stooge, is the idea that Superman's an idiot. He's just this big lump of muscle. Yeah, this is the same thing. This is why Lex Luthor always loses. Superman's very intelligent.
Very intelligent.
And the problem I had with that first season of Justice League is they made him stupid. And
Yeah, well, yeah.
Batman was the brains. Batman was the brains. And, if you have, I guess, Superman, who's both the muscle and the brains, then you say, well, what do you need Batman for? But
He could be naive sometimes, it's fine, but he still has a Kryptonian intelligence. I mean, that is a little bit more advanced than human intelligence.
yeah.
Should be. That's why you can't just have him swinging punches all the time. So that's what. Don't worry, everyone. I'm not going to go into it far, but I'm just saying that's why people like David, Idiot Goyer, and Snyder, people like that, don't understand. He's not just a mopey dude and runs around with superpowers. He's smart. He finds clever ways to use those powers to keep them from doing bad things, accidentally doing bad things, and all that kind of stuff. So he is smart. Superman, yeah. Now, that doesn't mean Batman can't outwit him sometimes because he might, because he's Batman. But you got to admit, it was kind of funny in the New Gods episode. I forget the name of it, right? When he says, the next time I let Superman, Superman talk us into something, hit me or something, would you? He said it to Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Which was, but you know what? Their relationship, I got to say something to a lot of, Frank Miller. I'm one who does not like Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns that much. I know that's sacrilege and everyone. I liked it when it first came out, got caught up in it. I was a young adult. But even before that, but especially after it, this trope about Superman and Batman being enemies is bullshit. They were the world's finest team for a reason. They were best friends. Did they have differences? Sure. And they started that in the world's finest comic book before Miller started doing it. He just made it worse. But even in that comic, they eventually, they made up and they were buddies. And in subsequent comics here and there, they become buddies and all that kind of stuff again sometimes. But even in the animated series, they kind of started out adversarial-ish. But you knew they were friends. Even in that first one, that World's Finest, when they did,
Three-parter with Luthor and the Joker.
Yeah, which was a lot of fun. They started out on different sides, but still. And even in that first episode of Justice League, you kind of knew they were a little bit friends. And then in that great episode where, if you'll remember, when they all thought Superman was dead, but he ended up in the future or whatever with Vandal Savage, Batman wouldn't accept his death. Wouldn't accept it. Yep. And he loved Superman. He just he's never going to show it. But when you grew up, in my area, when you grew up loving Batman and Superman, one of the things you loved most was that they were friends, and they are different, but not. They should never be 100% different. They have their differences. So I love them being buddies.
I like it both ways. I don't mind the adversarial aspect of it, but there were times where DC made it cruel. And
Clash is fine. The Clash
and right, and like that's probably one of the things that I hated about the Frank Miller the Frank Miller idea in Dark Knight Returns is he made their relationship cruel. Like there wasn't respect for each other. There was contempt, and which for that particular comic book worked. I can always look at something, and it's one of the things that it's always bugged me. It's like, when you're doing the monthly comic book, just do the monthly comic book and keep the continuity clean and make it to where it's all ages so that, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old, or 35-year-old can read the book, no problem. And there's a way to do it because I've watched Batman the Animated Series and I know you can do it. Whereas, you can do more of these kind of psychological stories that they do in some of these books that have bled into becoming, canon as one-offs. I look at, if you look at The Dark Knight Returns as an imaginary tale, as a one-off, then I don't have a problem with it. Yeah. Because it's just a different take on Batman. Same thing with the Cult, or same thing with the Killing Joke. As long as you're going to just do it as a one-off, and then that story's gone and done, which in all honesty was originally how it was created, then you're fine. But it's when you're like, wow, I like that so much, I'm just going to put it into canon. And then you wound up doing something you can't take back. And
good point.
And it winds up snowballing 20 years later to where you've got Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, and I like the writing in that run. I would have loved to have seen that as one-off or imaginary stories, or as a prestige format ongoings that's outside of continuity. Would have been great. But as the actual book on a monthly basis, no. My 5-year-old kid says, "Daddy, can I have a Batman comic?" And kids want to read what Daddy reads. That's what's going to hook them. And I got to look at my kid and say, "No, you can't have a Batman comic."
It's pathetic, man.
And it was just like it was. I think I mentioned it on air before, this story, but it's really prophetic, because I went along not realizing that as I was continuing my fandom, the writers who were my age were doing the same thing by writing the way they were. So the fact that instead of it continuously being 8 to 15-year-olds reading comic books, the fact that the age group just kept getting older and older and older, it never really occurred to me until that moment how and why it was happening. And so it was really kind of a light bulb moment, quite prophetic, as to say, this is what's been wrong with comic books the whole time. And now we're paying for it. And now we're probably, looks like as a universe, DC and Marvel, we're going to lose them. Probably within the next DC, probably in the next 2 years max, maybe even sooner. Maybe I'm here in June of going digital on monthlies and then just releasing trades. That'll be the end of comic shops. They won't be able to survive. Right now, half of them don't want to deal with DC anyway because of the old distributor issue. But that'll end it. And once if Marvel looks at it and says, "Oh hell, if they can do it, we can do it," then it's for sure over.
It's richly deserved. They deserve to be destroyed. They're garbage. I'll address some of the great stuff we got from our good buddies in the chat here. Nick Weiser, I absolutely agree with that. Miller's Daredevil run, his first one, of course, was excellent, and then when he returned, Daredevil Born Again is one of my all-time favorite comics, Miller. And much as I've liked some of Miller's art here and there, I was so glad that Dave Mazzucchelli did that, of course, with I think it was Klaus Jensen, who inks Miller a lot. That helps and that's just a masterpiece in my opinion. You won't get an argument out of on that one, buddy. It's a great book.
Confession time. I have a confession to make.
Everybody watch out. Here we go.
I loathe Klaus Jansen's inking. There has never ever been a point where I really enjoy Klaus's inking. In fact, I just watched I think it was Kayfabe was with Ed Piskor, where he went through, which is they call a gallery edition, which is basically an artist edition of The Dark Knight Returns, and on so many of the pages there would be an overlay sheet, and on that sheet would have different inks. And I think it was on the overlay sheet you'd have the original inks that were done by Klaus Jansen, and then Miller didn't like the ink, so he just went in and re-inked the whole thing and then pasted it up.
You're not alone. I mean, I like them fine on the Miller run, but you're not alone, dude. Not at all. I've heard a lot of people. He's overpowering like some inkers. D.O. Berg, 168 was my first. Oh man, well look, that's fairly sort of early into the Miller run where he started doing it himself. That's great stuff. Great stuff, man. And that is a fact. In a sense, that's a fact there, Vigilante Williamson. He did play, Bill Affleck did play Superman, sort of, in a way. He played George Reeves. But and then the film Hollywoodland, then they played Batman. Of course,
I just got Hollywoodland on Blu-ray, found a copy of it, and was like, I just came out on Blu-ray. Kino Lorber just put it out. And I'm like, I must know this.
It's an okay movie. He was actually pretty good in that. It's been a while.
I thought it was excellent. I thought I enjoy we're going to present you the story, and we'll throw little tidbits in here that could make it go this way or could make it go that way. And we're going to leave it up to you to decide what happened. I think Tony Manage's husband had him killed.
I think
they threw a lot of money at everyone downstairs to keep it quiet.
I believe it. Screw them, and I hope they burn in hell because I love George Reeves. Yeah, I think The Dark Knight Returns is incredible, but it has ruined the portrayal of the character and too many other superheroes. Well, I agree with that, Mark Lasita. Like I said, of course, even though, but it was Elseworlds, but it still had an effect. It had initially a fairly on the industry had an incredibly positive effect, certainly from a business sense, and then a lot of these things have short term good ramifications that turn into bad ones sometimes, and that's that and Watchmen, both very popular. And of course, I love Watchmen. But those two popular books were good for the industry for a while, and they were poison for the industry for a while.
It really started to get its roots into the character. They were doing a bunch of Elseworlds books that were kind of playing off of that, and those were one-offs, and that was fine. It wasn't until Batman came back from the Azrael Bat, Nightfall, Night Quest storyline, and it was about that same time that Bruce comes back as Batman, that Grant Morrison starts up his JLA run. And when that happened, that's when Batman changed forever, and he's never looked back. And I don't necessarily think it was for the better.
Yeah, he made Batman into just a complete another asshole to the point where, look, Batman's could be, a badass and a hard ass and all that kind of stuff, but a complete dick all the time. Yeah, you laugh sometimes, but after a while, like, all right, Jesus, dude, come on. But I had a lot of people, because I couldn't even stand that Morrison run, but I had a lot of people who did read it regularly. And when I would look in on it, say, dude, they thought Bat was funny at first. Yeah, Batman's such an asshole. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, you're getting ridiculous with it. Morrison's a jerk off. And I've liked a lot of his work. Some of his work, it's just some of it. What you're talking about is why I hated Joker. A lot of the elements may destroy canon because it is a one-off movie. Doesn't mean elements of it won't be put into the main canon. I don't like that film. Tons of people like that movie. I have a lot of my own reasons for not liking it as well, and that's some of it's there. And what you say there, Vigilante Williamson, I'm not a fan of that movie. I know that's not a popular opinion. As a movie, it's okay, but it's very disingenuous that they just use the name of that property to make basically when you have a big budget or a bigger budget for an art film. It's nothing to do with the character of the Joker or the Batman universe. They just used names, and that just doesn't impress me. But if people love that thing so much, it is good. In the sense that it's an interesting movie, but it's nothing to do with that character for me. But a lot of people have embraced it. They think it's a masterpiece, and you got me. I'm with you.
I don't like it, and I don't hate it. I don't nothing it. It's just kind of one of these. There's some as a psychological kind of experience of going through the life of this particular guy who, I don't need to even call him the Joker. That's fine. But if you called it something else, it's a kind of an interesting take on sort of the taxi driver story, enough to make you go, that was interesting. I got to be missing something though. I'm gonna go back and watch it again and see what I missed. And I did. I went and saw it, I think 3 times in the theater, and it has nothing to do with what it does. The character of the Joker. It just has to do with that particular film, if that makes sense. It does it cause very much like I think a lot of people looked at The Dark Knight Returns at the time that it came out. It's kind of it's an interesting take. Very interesting story. But and you want to kind of examine it and kind of do an autopsy on it as to why it is that you find it so interesting, not appealing, but interesting. And I was kind of in the same way with The Dark Knight Returns. Still am. I still like the story. I just don't like what it did to the rest of the comic books. But as a one-off, I enjoy it.
I hated the ending. Actually, I did not like issue 4. And then yes, back then it was not a trade or one story. It was 4 issues. But yeah.
I just didn't like the sequel.
Oh my goodness! Don't get me started on the fucking sequel. Those were one of the worst pieces of shit ever made. Doug, who is that in the center of the picture? Christmas Tree Man. If you're talking about the person with the top hat, it would be Zatanna. Your characters are as follows: Superman, Plastic Man, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Batman, Flash, Martian Manhunter, Red Tornado, Captain Marvel, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Black Canary, and Green Arrow. And then, yes, that's Satana. I don't know who you could be referring to, unless
Yeah, it's Satana's
say
top
the
hat.
tree is Christmas Tree Man. If that's what you're getting at, then yeah, he might be one of the Wonder Twins disguised as a Christmas tree. So
It's Swamp Thing. He's big
yeah,
festive.
it's Swamp Thing. I like these Christmas Tree Man, and I had to go name the characters like an idiot anyway. But I hear you, brother. It's Christmas Tree Man. I think you've given him the perfect name. But yeah, look, everyone. I mean, not everyone. A lot of people really do love that movie, Vigilante, which is fine. I saw it the one time in the theater. I was impressed with Joaquin Phoenix's performance, but I walked out kind of hollow. Again, call me a geek, but if you're not, this is almost as bad as garbage like Gotham, something that's just, not really to do with Batman, but they want to skirt around everything but. And then you're going to tell me it's Batman, but I'm not supposed to say, hey, you're not really being all that faithful. For example, at the scene at the gate, and this is fanboy stuff, I grant you, when he's messing around with young Bruce. And Alfred shows up, and then he intimidates. This guy is supposed to be Alfred, I guess. Well, the Alfred we all know would have punked that skinny bitch's ass, and wouldn't have put up with him messing with young Bruce. But he was a big wuss. I'm like, so yeah. And then the way the way Thomas Wayne acted in the film? No, that's not Thomas Wayne. He was a total scumbag. No, fuck you. You just scammed using this property name so you can have a big budget for your art film, and I'm not into it. But a lot of people are, which is fine. Just not my bag. I mean, and I guess I'm not an intellectual critic, because people thought, oh, so great. I mean, a lot of people that I love, by the way, that I think are fantastic people, raved about how great this movie is, and I'm like, okay.
Well, you. I don't know. I saw it from a completely different standpoint. I didn't see a story. I saw somebody recalling their impressions of their memories. Okay, the clocks on the wall are the same in every scene. So what you're looking at is the point of view of all of these happenings from the point of the Joker or of Arthur Fleck. We won't even call him Joker, of Arthur Fleck. So this is his POV. And it's not supposed to be true to life. It's not supposed to be right. It's just how fucked up he is in the head, and this is how he perceives it. It's supposed to be off. That's the idea.
I said they hijacked the property to have a big budget for their little art film, and that's all. And that's just kind of doesn't work for me. Yeah. I don't disagree with anything you said. I totally agree with all that. I think it was all in a stupid head, but it's just not really anything to do with that comic book property to me, which is, fine. I just not mad at it or anything, mind you. Just
right.
Kind of. It's look. The performance is undeniable. He's really good.
Yeah.
And I got to admit, it was kind of funny when he went on the show and shot Robert De Niro's stupid face. And the movie's funny. It's not that I don't think I hate it, but I come back to like the entire world going like, this is the greatest freaking one contingent saying, oh my God, it's going to create a bunch of a bunch of evil alt-right scumbags. And then the rest of them are like, oh, this is the greatest movie ever made. You damn snowflakes. I'm like, is it though? Is it?
Yeah, I just thought it was like I said, for a character who was really thrown off, it was an interesting psychological character study. But that's about as far as I take it. And honestly, if you walk the other going, oh, wow, I really loved it, and you're really kind of excited about what you saw, see or shrink. Because
were, man.
I walked out of there just feeling kind of weird. And like, in fact, at the time, the girl I was dating, she was like, I told her, I said, well, I saw the Joker. And she goes, well, what'd you think? And I was like, I don't really know. I don't know if I liked it or not. I'm going to have to go back and see it. And it's like, I got to kind of dissect this thing a bit, because I don't even know if I liked it, but I thought it was really interesting. And that's I'm still at that point. I just kind of feel like I understand it a little better.
I had the same reaction. I just didn't want to go back, but I was like, okay. I'm not saying I really hate it now. I just kind of thought it just could have been called anything. It could have been called the funster. It could have been called the jester. It could have been called anything.
Well, speaking of geek movies, we have anniversaries today of a couple of geek movies going back in time. If people haven't checked, I'd like to pass along to them so that they know to maybe go look up for some hidden gems or classics, or maybe not quite that great of a movie, but definitely another interesting to see kind of flick.
All right. Good night, buddy. Thanks for being here, man. Go ahead.
First one, it was 1956. And the sequel to The Creature of the Black Lagoon came out, Return of the Creature.
Nice.
That came out today in 1956. And I love The Creature. I just want to, or Gilman, as some people call him.
Me too.
I've always been a fan of all the Universal monsters, and him and Wolfman were the only two that you were really dealing with the undead. So, and then the fact that you make him aquatic made him so unique amongst the group of Universal monsters that I always dug them. And what a great design, what a great costume. And the second movie was a property we know and love, but not quite. It was and this might have been the sequel too. I can't remember if Invasion of the Daleks was first, but this one was Doctor Who and the Daleks from 1965.
Yeah, that was the first one. Yeah, the second was Dalek Invasion of Earth 20 something or other.
Okay, so yeah, Doctor Who and the Daleks came out today in 1965 with Peter Cushing, and it's interesting. It's if you like Doctor Who, it's worth watching to say you saw it and say, "Yeah, that's interesting."
Yeah, these films were made to they weren't made in conjunction with the BBC, but actually with some American company also to cash in on the success of the Daleks, which any Doctor Who fan can tell you. The second episode of the second full 4-part story of William Hartnell's run in 1963 was called The Daleks, and it saved the show and made the show the phenomenon it became. And they were Daleks over there were so huge; they were bigger than the show. And everything was Dalek. The kids were insane for Daleks in the 60s. And they saw this, and they paid Terry Nation. They got with Terry Nation, who owns the rights to the Daleks, who quote unquote created them, wrote their first stories. Were pretty popular. And so they made those two films with Peter Cushing as a character called Doctor Who. He did have a time machine that looked like the TARDIS, but other than that, it has no actual relation to the TV show itself.
Nope. But it's still fun to watch.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. It is fun.
Yeah, you can't take it. It's like I'm watching some Doctor Who. No. You just got to go in and say, I'm going to watch a really kind of goofy, kind of fun movie and going to have a good time. And if you go in that way, you're going to have a good time.
Oh, absolutely. He's not a Time Lord and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just, it is. And of course, Peter Cushing's a wonderful actor, great actor, so that helps as well. So, yeah, and Bernard Cribbins is in either one of the two. And of course, so yeah, that's cool. Who was also, who was Donna Noble's uncle or whatever, grandfather, whatever. Yeah, in the Doctor Who, the David Tennant run.
Oh, really? They tried to canonize those?
No, they didn't. They didn't.
Oh, no, it's just a nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
They just cast him. So no, but just so happened he was in. I think he was in the second. Okay. Yeah, but Bernard Cribbins, great actor. But yeah, I think he was. Yeah, not the same character or anything. But yeah, because Dalek Invasion of Earth, whatever. I mean Dalek, whatever the second one was called, was sort of named after the second Dalek story, which was called the Dalek Invasion of Earth. So.
Well, I just got them on Blu-ray. I'm giving them to my kid because he's a huge Doctor Who fan. Let me come here. I might lose you for a second while I'm doing this.
Okay. Exterminate. Oh yes.
Yeah, Daleks Invasion Earth 2, it says, and 2150 AD.
Okay.
And George Fleming directed the first one, and he directed both of them. And Kino was a student. Kino Lorre just put them out, and they're putting out a lot of good stuff right now. They look exactly like the Daleks. There is a TARDIS in this thing.
Yeah. They have his time machine is called the TARDIS in there,
and it's I don't know. They almost look like Hammer horror films versions of Doctor Who.
Yeah, well, he was very associated with Hammer. Peter Cushing, the great Peter Cushing. He was great and fantastic.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with you. The first two, Curse of Frankenstein, Revenge of Frankenstein, with Baron Frankenstein, played by Peter Cushing, I think I actually enjoy more than the two Universal films. I mean,
sacrilege.
It is, but I find it's funny because you go and watch them and you're just like, wow, for the time, these things are really kind of saucy. I mean, as far as they got really hot looking women running around and, wearing very little to no clothing. I mean, you don't, I don't think they show any nudity. They do later on in some of the movies, but in these early ones, they don't show nudity, but there's a lot of very thin clothing with a lot of backlighting going on to make sure you can see the female form through the clothing. And for the time period that they were made, you kind of just say, wow, that's really kind of racy considering we're at 58, 59 when this movie was made. I can't believe they were able to get away with that, but I guess that's a British thing. I don't think it would have played over here. I think you would have had people up in arms considering what time we're talking here.
Oh God, yeah. I do love me some Universal monster films though as well. I mean,
I do love Boris Karloff. I actually Bride of Frankenstein more so than the original, believe it or not. Just like the look of better. I like the look of the monster in the first one, but I think Bride of Frankenstein's a much better movie.
Bride of Frankenstein's one of the greatest quote unquote sequels ever. I mean, it's just it's terrific.
Can't argue that. I even like the Lord Byron, Mary Shelley together, with their friends telling stories or in the mansion or her coming up with it, because my understanding that's how it came about, and so they kind of reenact the actual. You there?
Yep.
Okay, thought I lost you. Anyway, they kind of sat around and told each other horror stories, and this was the one Mary told, and they're like, you got to write this down, and that's how the book came out. And of course, if you guys don't have the Bernie Wrightson book, what are you waiting for? Go get it.
Compared to you, I almost don't have it, in the sense that I only have a trade paperback. the first one that came out in the trade from way back, whenever the thing came out.
If you have a first printing of the trade, then at least the production quality in there was pretty good. I got a reprint copy of the trade that came out in the 90s, and the reprint quality in that one was only so. But I guess it probably been about 10, 12 years, maybe longer now, that Dark Horse reprinted it in a hardback volume. And wow, they went and tried to hunt down all the original art so they could do new scans and really do a beautiful presentation, hardcover presentation of it. And if you can find one of those, it's worth the grab. It really is. I don't think they're terribly expensive either. So yeah, I would pick it up if you get a chance, because it's really well done. The hard one to find is the little trade paperback. It's really skinny, but it's called The Lost Frankenstein Pages, and it has a lot of early attempts at pages and rough drafts and a couple of finished pieces that just didn't make it into the book. That thing I've got, I originally lost my copy, and my ex actually bought me the copy for Christmas about 3 years ago, after I lost it. And that thing's worth a fortune. I can't believe how much that little trade is worth.
Wow.
Yeah, it sells for big money on eBay. I can't believe it's just like, really? Because I didn't think this is kind of like a little throwaway book. I mean, I remember when it came out, and at the time we had a different distributor who was better than Diamond, and I miss Capital.
I mean, I loved when Capital had the warehouse in New Orleans. We used to go there all the time.
Well, it wasn't even just the fact, the convenience of them being close to us. They were just a better distributor.
Yeah. They were far better, right? Absolutely. Before they came along, you had to, if you were going to have the subscription services in the late 70s, early 80s, there were a bunch of them. They didn't have monopolies like Diamond ended up with.
Yeah.
And Capital was always the one I liked the best. But I think by the time I opened up, you had to kind of go with Diamond. But yeah, Carl was with Diamond at that time, so I think I went with him. And by then, they didn't have their warehouse. in New Orleans. So it was driving to the airport every week to wait on the airplane to bring the comics. Man.
Yeah. Well, I remember everything went to hell in a handbasket in the mid '90s when Marvel decided they were going to buy Heroes World to do their own distribution, and because I was doing business with our mutual friend Jeff at the time, and he was using almost exclusively Capital. There was a couple. He would get the Diamond previews, but it was literally just to buy a few odds and ends things that were in the merchandise section that never showed up in Capitals. And there wasn't much of that. It was just a few things here or there. Almost everything he would get through Capital, and they were great, better to deal with on refunds. They were better to deal with just in personal customer service. They packed the books better. You had fewer damages. Getting returns on damages was always easier to deal with. The good guys lost. I mean, it's just
yes, sir.
The good guys, yeah. The good guys lost.
Often do, man. Well, I tell you what, everyone. I'm so glad you're all here. I hope you're all planning to have a great Christmas, or whatever you do for the holidays. Whether you're celebrating or not, you're probably off, a lot of you. So if you are, hope you're planning a good one. I hope we're gonna be. Well, I got a lot of things planned now. I guess I may as well just tell Mark right now. I don't know, I can't remember exactly what we're saying for Monday night. Just basically, we do a Christmas party type thing where we'll talk about maybe comics and other types of genre related stuff to Christmas and that sort of thing, just a little bit, and just hang out, just talk a little Christmas things like that. But I got a lot of things planned for the new year. But before that, because after Monday, I've just got so much going on for Christmas if I'm not in quarantine. And that I don't know if what's going to happen with that, but if I'm not still in quarantine, I should say. But let's see. But Saturday night, the wonderful, extraordinarily fantastic, and she's going to get mad at me if I give her too much hyperbole, but I can't help it. Raquel Briggs will join me to talk about why we love Star Trek. And she is just amazing, and we have so much fun talking Trek. And we're going to do that. We'll talk, and we will announce and talk about then what our plans are for 2021 for Saturday night Star Trek talk. But I also got a lot of other nights where I'll do a lot of other stuff. Still the open just geek foolishness like we're doing tonight here, but a lot of topics, a lot more comic stuff. I promise my boy Lord Thoth and Carlos, we're going to get that other Legion of Superheroes stories. Legion of Superheroes show done. We had to postpone because Carlos had to cancel on me last week.
Oh, and by the way, speaking of Legion of Superheroes, speaking of Legion, curse you, sir, curse you. I'm
sorry. He's mad at me, damn.
I found your Legion of Superheroes talk, the first one that you had there, to be very enlightening and interesting, and actually got me excited for the team. So much so that, like I said, up around the Pittsburgh area, there's like 2 or 3 shops that are what I call really good honey holes for back issues. So I stop in one, and lo and behold, they've got everything except for the first issue and the first annual, but the rest of the run is there.
Wow. Damn, man.
So now that rest of that run is not there. It is 2 foot away from me in my house after $80 I spent, which well, I mean, think about the number of comic books we're talking here. That was 63.
That's a good deal.
63 issues plus four annuals. So, wow. And I'm missing 2 issues out of that deal. So, yeah, I mean, it's almost 65 comics for barely over $1 a pop. And
so, if you think it sucks, are you going to be mad at me?
I've owned it before. It got washed away in the flood, but I own it for sure now. And I never read it before. I had absorbed. There was a comic shop down in New Orleans that supposedly was a friend of the family, or my brother-in-law was part of my brother-in-law's family. And I guess somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s, he shut it down. And my brother-in-law shows up and says, "Happy birthday." And then proceeds to bring in like 12 grocery bags. I mean, they weren't even in long boxes, but they were bagged. They weren't imported, of comic books. Everything from Independence to Marvel to DC, you name it, it was in there. I had the original Outsiders by Jim Aparo. I had the Batman the Outsiders by Mike Barr and Alan Davis. I had the Volume 3 Baxter run of Teen Titan. I mean, it was everything. It was everything. It had so much in it. The Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, the Dead Man's Back or whatever, or Dead Again, and then it was just everything. Jonah Hex, you name it, it was in there for D. It was probably more DC than it was Marvel, but there was considerable amount of Marvel too. I mean, I had quite a bit of Thor. I got my Simonton run was in there, and my Byrne Fantastic Four run was in there. And my Alpha Flight run came out of that. So, I mean, it was just like everything from about 1980. I had my Byrne X-Men run was from there. Byrne Claremont X-Men.
Wow.
Frank Miller's Daredevil run. I mean, Howard Chaykin's American Flag. Mike Barron's Mark Badger. Nice. it was like the greatest hits of the 80s was in these 12 grocery bags. And that was the start of my collection. That was how I got started. I mean, before that, I was reading G.I. Joe and Transformers, and then it was like, here you go, wham, here's a collection. And you look and you're just like, I don't know where to start. And so, yeah, I mean, it took up basically when I finally got it all collated and separated out, it took up eight long boxes to give you an idea of how much it was. And so anyway, I never got around to reading them because, I'd never really thought of myself as a fan of the Legion. And I've talked to other people and they're like, it's a really small niche group, even within the niche group of comic book readers. But those that love the Legion, love the Legion. And,
we do.
And so I'm like, you know what? You sold me. I mean, this was the run that I know I had, so I'm going to go back and try to find it, and then I'm going to go ahead and read it. And I'm hoping I can read this run, the Baxter run, without having to read any of the back ones. If not, I think there's a couple of omnibus volumes to get a volume 2 that Paul Levitz did of Superboy and the Legion superheroes, which aren't terribly expensive. So I may invest in that if I have to. But I'm hoping I can read this run without having to read that. And if I like it, then go back and get them.
Take care, Eric K. We appreciate it, buddy. Well, I love that run. Actually, it starts off kind of aggravating for me because I'm not going to say what happens, but something happens in it. But I really, again, I like that run a lot. Back then when I was reading, I plan to reread them again. But I think my favorite was a little bit before that, around the 280, right when Levitz picked the book up. When he picked it up, not too long after he picked it up, there were a couple issues by Pat Broderick. And I was never like the biggest Pat Broderick guy, mind you. I know he was on, when he was on Microdonts or what have you. But I kind of liked his Legion. And he didn't stay on long. And then Giffen came on and did the issues leading up to the Great Darkness Saga, then the Great Darkness Saga. I love that. And then after the book went along for a little while, and then he started changing his comic style, as you know. I mean, his art style, Giffen. So from them there, I loved it. But before that, I loved the James Sherman's run. The very few things that Jim Starlin did, actually he wrote a couple under the name of Steve Apollo. True story. I love the Grell run and of course the Dave Cockrum stuff. But you're not lying. It is. They say it's a niche thing. I guess it is. I never really thought of that before. But it's not just that. It is a niche thing, I guess. It's popular. Before the X-Men Teen Titans crossover, before New Teen Titans hit it big, it was good. That was going to be a Legion of Superheroes X-Men crossover. Since Dave Cockrum had worked on both books, and it was announced in one of the DC ads or something like that, or whatever. But it obviously never came to fruition. So Legion was popular, had a fairly popular run, but Yeah, I mean, was never as big as like when New Teen Titans was huge or anything like that, or never bigger than the Justice League, but it was popular. And then I found out something when I went on Facebook in the early days of social media, which is kind of strange. And again, I'm not. This is, by the way, this is not. It's not political, but I found out that the Legion of Superheroes has a huge, and I mean gigantic, following in the gay community. Now you might say, well, how do you mean? For example, I know there are many comic book fans who are gay who like the Fantastic Four, who love love the Justice League and the X-Men, but you never hear, like, I don't know, you probably never see anything in those groups where they would talk about their, the fact that they're gay. They would just talk about the comics. Mm-hmm. But in Legion groups, I started seeing people talking about that. They're not talking about in your traditional like SJW way or anything. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm just talking about how so many of them would talk about these characters in their, in their youth, loving these heroes and these stories, and they would bring up, their sexuality and that sort of thing. And I didn't know this. I don't happen to be gay, but I don't care that if whatever anyone is into or anything like that. I didn't know there was this. In other words, you never hear about gay Fantastic Four fans, even though the greatest Fantastic Four fan I know is a gentleman named J.A. Flood, who's been on my show, who's in my Baxter Building basement group, who is a little bit older than me, and
I'm a part of that group.
Yeah, and he's a real good dude. He loves the Fantastic Four. We've talked FF before. A really nice guy. He even worked on the old Fantico Chronicles FF thing, and he's just a huge fan. And he never says, and he never really enters into it. I mean, on his own page, people know that he's gay and stuff like that. But as far as his love for the Fantastic Four, you never see that. But with the Legion, it's a big thing, and I don't know. I never. You're kind of afraid to ask. You're like, okay, you guys, I'm not trying to throw any shade, but why does this have anything to do with any of that? Because if people might think you're being bigoted or whatever. When you don't, I was just genuinely curious. So I don't even know the full answer, but they did a book about 10 years ago, whatever it was, called Teenagers from the Future. And a buddy of mine who's a Legion fan bought it. He thought it was just going to be like, essays and stuff, because there were a lot of fanzines for the Legion back then. Legion Outposts and things like that. Essays. Uh-oh, I lost Mark. He'll pop back in. There were a lot of essays about the Legion. And so that's what we kind of thought this book was. And it turns out that this book, sorry, I lost you there for a minute, bro. Anyway, this book basically he found out through that book why a lot of people in their youth back then, this is a lot of people from the 70s and 80s, related to it in that way, and which is fine. I'm not knocking it. I don't care. But it's just kind of you don't hear about that with the Justice League or the Avengers or the Fantastic Four. You just hear fans. There are plenty of gay people who like those characters, and this is not about any kind of agenda either. It's just kind of an odd thing. Where I get all my Legion Superheroes shirts and all that stuff? Those guys who make those shirts and everything, that's the kind of, they have a site that, they call themselves, they're nice dudes. They've helped me with making a lot of my shirts and stuff, but they grew up loving the Legion. So I don't get it, but the Legion does have a lot of soap opera to it, all these romances and stuff, but they're all, they're obviously maybe it's because of the time. They're straight romances. So I don't know, but it is a curiosity. And I'm not, you step, on eggshells because you're not, you don't go in that group and ask people, but I've been seeing it for years. So don't understand it.
I did try to watch the cartoon about a week ago. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I tried to. Dude, I can't get past how they look at that, and people will tell you who are fans, oh, I agree that I don't like what they did to certain characters' looks, but it's still really good. I said, I believe you. It has good stories, but I hate the look.
The first one, at least, because I really only know the Legion as a supporting as supporting characters to maybe a Superman story or or this story or that, mostly Superman stories. That's how I know the Legion. And in that capacity, it does at least somewhat feel like the Legion. But for the first season, for the second season, that show is completely off the rails. They use, I think it was early aughts. They did the Our World's at War with Imperiex, bad guy, with through all of the DC books, but it really kind of started with Superman. And because I remember Mongol, who at this point I think is dead, and it's like his nephew who has the same name or something like that, goes to Earth to train Superman. Say, hey, look, we got to put our differences aside because this dude's coming, and you need to be ready. And he's just like, you've been here too long. You're pulling your punches. You can't pull your punches with this guy. This guy is going to kill you. And in fact, Hippolyta in that run actually dies wearing the gold Wonder Woman armor.
Oh,
I remember that being part of the storyline. And anyway, Imperiex is the main villain in the second season, and there is a Superman in the second season, but he is a clone of the actual Superman, and he's from, I don't know, like the 45th century, where Imperiex comes from and has destroyed that. So he comes to the past, which is our future of the 35th century, to get the Legion to go further into the future to try to stop them. And then something happens. Imperiex goes to the Legion's time, and they have to all go back into the Legion's time and try to fight him with this Superman clone. And then to make sure they get extra firepower, they go back into the past even further to get the original Superman and bring him in. And if you're confused now,
oh boy,
you understand the problems the show had. And it got dark. I mean, you're just like, this was kind of a fun little lighthearted show. I kind of liked the last one with the Sun Eater and the Fatal Five. Wow, this show really changed for the second season, and it was a bit different of a show. And if you didn't like the first season, you're gonna hate the second season.
I have people telling me that they like the second better, but see, I've watched the first few of the first season, and I really hate the fact that, and I know it was legal reasons, that they couldn't call him Superboy.
Yep.
They have to call him Superman, and it just drives me insane. I hate what they did with Brainiac 5. He's not supposed to be a goddamn robot transformer shit. Hate the way Bouncing Boy looks. I hate the way Timberwolf looks. It drives me insane. So people say, yeah, but if you can get past that. I said, look, I understand getting past things. Am I a purist on some things? A few, but I've learned to adapt and go, all right, I'll accept certain changes. But remember that episode of Justice League Unlimited where they met the Legion? I said, my God, why can't we have that as a cartoon? Why can't they look like that and be by, James Tucker, who I like and everything, did work on that Legion cartoon. But why couldn't we have that? We got one episode. I mean, my God, they look great. It was in the Bruce Timm style, but it was, man, they had the costumes and everything and they had, like I said, they had the Fatal Five in there. Oh my God, man, I love that episode.
Well, you also had there was an episode of Superman the Animated Series.
Yeah,
with, I think there was 3 Legionaries that they were in it. Cosmic Boy, Saturn Girl, and Lightning Lad.
I loved it. It didn't do everything I wanted because it changed stuff and screwed around with stuff, but I love that. Oh my God, man! But yeah, you're right. And and I'm told that they changed Brainiac 5 in the second season.
Oh yeah, no, he's worse. He's even more of a transformer in the second one.
Oh Jesus! Someone lied to me.
No. If you didn't like the first season, you're gonna hate the second season.
Like I said,
you're a Legion purist, yeah. Like when I say this show goes off the rails, if you're just a casual fan of DC Comics and the Legion's first season of Legion was kind of fun, and it'll go into a direction that you'd be like, oh, this is kind of cool. But I mean, if you're like, long live the Legion, then when you get to season 2, you're gonna be like, pardon my language, but fuck this show.
Dude, a lot of Legion fans love it though. I mean, they're so thrilled they just came out with this big Blu-ray set. I have watched I finally, and this is just relatively recently, forced myself to watch like the first 2 or 3, and I didn't hate the writing or the story. I thought it was kind of, if it were, I could see where that if I weren't such a stickler for the look and some of the shit they do to the visuals of the characters, that I would probably like the show better. But I'm one that can't get past it. But I'm also one who doesn't accept anything Legion after 1989 anyway, except the Lightning Saga, that Superman and the Legion thing, because and then that led to the short time in Adventure Comics after Legion of Three Worlds, where Paul Levitz brought his Legion back, but they were an adult version. I read that for a while, and I used to correspond with Levitz on Facebook. It was really nice. I'd send him private. I didn't want to bug him much, but I send him some private chats, and he would private back to me, and I'd talk about different stuff, and I would thank him. I mean, I said, yes, it didn't look exactly like the Legion I want, but they were his Legion because it was that continued on for many years later. They were an adult Legion, and it was. I read those. I bought those for a while up until the Screw 52 screwed them out. And I remember right before the Screw 52 came out.
Did you attempt to read? I'm sorry, I hate to cut you off. Did you attempt to read the before he decided to go completely wackadoo, the Mark Waid Barry Kitson run?
I tried to look. I can't do it. I can't.
Okay.
But yeah, no, yeah, I neither the Jim Shooter one either, and I wanted to though. But now I say here, and by the way, I believe they're good. I just when people tell me they are, I've nothing, no doubt. But you know, I asked.
Oh, by the way, I have an answer to a question that was asked. If you recall, we were talking about the Superboy and the Legion Elseworlds two-parter that Alan Davis and Mark Farmer did.
Superboy's Legion, yeah.
Yes, and I made the mention that the character, that this one character, it's like that's a spitting image of Alex Toth.
Okay.
Remember this conversation?
I remember you telling that, yeah.
Yeah. It was some of those. I don't know. It was kind of like a human character, an older man, mustache. I can't. You would know his name. I can't do it right off the bat.
R.J. Brand.
Yes. Anyway, in the comic book, you look at it and go, "Wow, that dude is a spitting image of Alex Toth, the artist." And I was like, I wonder if Alan Davis did that on purpose. So I found Alan Davis's email, and I wrote him.
Oh wow!
And it took about 3 weeks, but he finally responded. He said he chuckled, and it was like, no, and it's like, I see what you're saying, but it's like I didn't have that in mind at all. I was just I had some reference and was just doing my interpretation of the reference that I had, but it really had nothing to do with that. But yeah, just funny coincidence, I guess. Well, I'm like, okay, well, at least we know.
Yeah, it's cool of him to answer you like that. That's cool. I love Alan Davis. That's pretty cool. Look, Levitz was cool about it, but you know what was kind of funny? Because as soon as they announced the Screw 52, I got really pissed off. Now, for a couple of years, I was buying a lot of DC books at that point, but then the events were starting to piss me off. They were eventing me out of comics of DC, but I bought a few, and I was buying the Levitz adventure comics, right?
Yeah.
Well, so I kept in touch with him, and he was nice and friendly about it, and I appreciated him at least giving some closure to his Legion. And then all of a sudden, when they just said, screw you if you like the DC Universe, we're doing our Screw 52. If you don't like it, suck it. Well, as opposed to doing that, keeping the real one and doing their own thing like a la Ultimates, whatever. But anyway, I asked him, I said, so will this be the same Legion you were doing? Because he was going to work on that, the new one for that.
Yeah.
I said, and I asked him, he said, well, you'll have to wait and see. And I asked him, I said, so will there be, just like you've done with this one, there will have been a Superboy, right? And he said, not really. And I said, thanks. All I needed to know. Appreciate it. He was honest.
Yeah.
But he was still working. I said, it's not. We all knew that universe wasn't. So, and he said something, and he wrote back and said, you'll be giving it a chance, won't you? I said, no, sir. To be honest with you, I appreciate you, but if it's not, if they're dumping what you've been working on, I have no interest in any of the Screw 52 books, but I appreciate you. And he was cool. He said, all right, well, fuck that. And that was what made me drop everything DC. And I was already pretty much dropped all of Marvel. And I wasn't buying a whole lot of comics after that.
Yeah. Now, if you had event fatigue from DC at that point, Marvel was 100 times worse. I mean, they went from House of M to Civil War to Follow the Hulks to Avengers versus X-Men, and then there was Fear itself, and then there was Originals. I mean, it just never. Secret Invasion was in there. It was never ending. It literally started to get to a point where you were going one event into the next event, into the next event, into the next event without stop. And in each one of these, it's like, hey, buy the 12-issue maxi series, and while you're at it, buy the 57 other issues that join into with it in the regular titles. And it's just like, you guys are so transparent about just trying to rape your customers for their cash that I can't do this anymore. And I stayed in and tried to read some of them. I didn't read them all, but I thought Siege was okay, which was kind of a Thor one. Fear itself was god awful. I thought Secret Invasion was really good in theory and in plot, but in execution, not so much. I thought the animated series did it much better. Even though they really played up kind of the paranoia and kind of the Red Scare aspect of it that it had in the comic books. I really enjoyed that part of it. But once you actually got into Secret Invasion, the actual, hey, we're going to duke it out and take our planet back kind of thing, I thought the animated series did it better. But it got to be too much, and I was just kind of like, all right, I'm throwing in the towel. I can't do this anymore. When they made Nick Fury the Watcher and ripped the eyeballs out of Uatu, and I was just kind of like, I can't do this anymore. This is going completely off the rails, and this doesn't even make any sense to me. You got characters not acting like characters. They're just, I don't know. They're just doing whatever you want them to do. And these characters have actually, over the course of 40, 50 years, have developed their own personalities. And you have to write the characters like they're the characters, and nobody's doing that. And I can't do this anymore. And that was the end of Marvel for me, pretty much.
DC had kind of changed for a short time there. So right around, because I really was getting sick of Marvel, so I wasn't buying almost any of there. When Johns and Van Sciver and whoever brought back Hal Jordan and corrected what I thought was a horrible injustice, brought him back with Green Lantern Rebirth, I decided now that you're doing, because I had totally dumped out of DC. I'd stopped buying them for like 12 years. And I went and I liked that. And I started liking some of their other books. And for about a 4 or 5 year run there, I liked a lot of their comics. I even liked, the only event I kind of liked was, I thought Sinestro Corps War was all right.
Yeah, I did too.
I thought Infinite Crisis was okay, I guess. I hated Identity Crisis, but that was before that thing.
Yeah, I even thought, in again, another one of these, the plot and the idea is great. Not some of the execution was good, some of it not so much. Of Blackest Night. And that was when things started to go south for me, was after that ended, because then it's like, now Brightest Day. And I'm like,
I didn't even know there was no pause between it. It went right into Brightest Day.
And I'm like, hold on.
What?
But there was a point there where it was just like, DC was doing some, I mean, Jeff Johns also was doing Superman Action Comics at the time, and he was teaming up with some, Alan Kubert and Gary Frank, and hell, even Eric Powell was doing his Bizarro story, and the Legion showed up in Action Comics with Superman, and I thought that was a great story. And it was just like, DC's kind of running on all cylinders right now. Had Pete Tomasi doing Batman, and somebody else, I can't remember who was writing at the time, but it might have been Grant Morrison, but I thought he was actually writing a pretty damn good Batman. And so it was just kind of like, this is actually working. I'm enjoying this quite a bit. And then all of a sudden you did the countdown to 52, and then you hit Final Crisis and Brightest Day, and it's just like Countdown. Final Crisis actually came before it, but it's just kind of like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. It's got to stop.
Pretty much the same way. I mean, look, there were so many good series that were not connected to events. I did like the Lightning Saga. It was okay.
I liked the follow up to the Lightning Saga that Dwayne McDuffie did, which was basically Super Friends. It was the Justice League versus the Legion of Doom, and I enjoyed the hell out of that. And then I thought Justice League went off the rails after that. after the first two storylines. John Byrne and Roger Stern did I don't know, it was maybe 4 issues that they collected. That was then, this is now, where they're fighting some demigod that was buried on the moon, and Byrne's drawing it, and Mark Farmer's doing the inks, and Roger Stern is writing it, and you kind of go back into the past and see kind of an older version of the Justice League with Black Canary and Green Arrow, Ollie, and the kind of that Bronze Age era, and then kind of more of a modern age era with John Stewart as the Green Lantern at the time, and I thought that was really good. It was in JLA Classified, and and then it was like somebody put on the brakes, and I don't know, somebody, I think it was Chuck Dixon, said, at least when I worked for Joe Shooter, I was working for a megalomaniac who had a plan. Whereas working for Didio, he was referring to Didio. He's like, when I worked for Shooter, I was working for a megalomaniac that had a plan. Whereas he felt like, and it's kind of the impression that I got, which was Dan Didio would just go with the wind. It's like, oh, this is hot today? Okay, scrap everything we had just planned for the last 6 months. We're going to go this direction. And then we'll go this direction for 3 months. And then it's like, oh, now this is hot. All right, scrap everything we pumped out about for the last 3 months. Now we're going to go this direction. And nobody could ever get their bearings and keep their feet under them. And the New 52 suffered from that. And that was why, you had George Perez trying to write a Superman book that really wasn't Superman. But even after, I think, like 3 or 4 issues, he's like, okay, guys, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. I can't make heads or tails of this. And you guys are changing the rule books every 2 or 3 weeks, even while I'm in the middle of the story. So this has got to stop. I can't do it. And so he bowed out of Superman. And then all of a sudden you got the revolving door. Paul Jenkins left, and Rob Liefeld left, and everybody was leaving during the New 52. And I remember they had fired Gail Simone off of Batgirl, and I was actually liking Batgirl at the time. She was writing a pretty good book. What I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, because fans of the book, which I was one of, tried to rally to keep her on the book. What I didn't realize was what a terrible piece of garbage she was being behind the scenes, of basically being a pampered brat and not answering the emails of her new editor. And after not getting an answer, he fired her off the book. And once I realized that, it's like, well, yeah, you should have fired her off the book. I wish I would have known. I wouldn't have fought so hard to get her back on, along with, every other buddy that was reading the book. And it was a mess. Yeah, New 52 just made a mess. And then, they didn't even know what to do with their Superman. After a while, they're like, well, we're going to depower him. We're going to shave his head. And, they didn't know what to do. I mean, they made a character who was so unlikable in that Superman. So when we got Rebirth and they brought back, basically what was the Byrne Superman, it's like, oh, thank God. He's got a kid, and he's like, and then it turns out they wrote the kid well. It's what Tomasi and Jurgens were doing there before they brought in Michael Bendis. Brian Michael Bendis was actually fun read. I was like, Super Dad. I'm digging Super Dad. I can't believe I'm digging Super Dad, because anytime they've ever tried to give Superman a kid before, it was always terrible. But this is actually really good. They're doing a hell of a job writing this. I'm enjoying it. And it's like, no, we're going to take the kid away. We're going to fly him off in outer space and bring him back, and he's going to be older, and he's going to be a punk. And you're just like, oh, and that strong lasting marriage that you waited for from Lois and Clark, and they've been together for 20 years. Yeah, we're going to break them apart too. So it's going to be a broken home now. And you're just like, I can't do this anymore. And I just kept, every time something would go bad, and then Tom King would do the Catwoman wedding, and you're just like, I can't do this anymore. And it just kept being the mantra of reading comic books. I can't do this anymore. Until finally it's like, hey, Comicsgate's can offer you, and I enjoy some of these books, but a $25 price tag, is and I understand why it is, and they try to give you as much value as they can for the price tag, but it doesn't afford you to buy as many books as you would wish you could. And so Yeah, I mean, I buy as many as I feel like I can and want and enjoy supporting, and creators I enjoy supporting. But yeah, right now, and I understand hearing from a lot of people, back issues are huge right now, and they're cheap. You know, like I said, I got almost the entire run of Legion Volume 3 for barely over $1 a book. And David Finch, who also has a pretty cool YouTube page, and turns out it's actually a pretty good guy. Um, he kind of made his fame in the late '90s with a book called Ascension, and it's like I had those; those were pretty cool looking. And it's like found those first 15 issues, and I think I got them for $20. So yeah, cheap. Back issues are cheap right now if you can get them. I mean, there are still some key ones that are going to cost you bucks, but if you can get it, well, I think I'm just going to put a run together. You can do it with back issues right now. It may not be that way in 6 months, but right now, yeah, it's easy to do. So if you're out there and you want to collect back issues, go get them, find them. Hope you have a shop that has a ton of them, and stuff that you thought about putting together. Now's the time to do it, because I have a feeling back issues is going to become a hot commodity within the next year and a half.
Yep, probably so. Yeah, no question about it, man. Oh man. Well, Doug. No,
Did I run everybody away yet? Do we still have anybody listening?
Mark with the C says, series like Secret Wars was fun in the 80s. You don't want to get me started on what I did to my Secret Wars issues. But then publishers went overboard and killed a good thing instead of limiting it, events. And events, well, they're garbage. To me, they're almost never any good. I mean, but if they're when they were over the summer, they actually were events. When they were all year round, they weren't events anymore. How can they be an event if it's what you're doing the whole damn time? Blackest Night, I was an idiot who bought every one of them and all the crossovers. And right after that, they went into Brightest Day. I mean, that took a year.
Yeah.
So
there was a lot of money involved in Blackest Night. It really was.
How is it an event? It's one of the countdown. I bought every one of the stupid 52 countdown thing. Yeah. Don't ask me why, because I have no answer. I was just buying stuff, I guess.
Well, you had that, and then you had New 52, which counted back up, or it went up and down, or went down and up. I can't remember. I think it went up and then down. But yeah, no, that was such a waste. Such a waste.
And again, Contest of Champions, when it's the real one, the original, wasn't all that great a comic. I mean, but at the time it was just a few issues. And it was even Secret Wars. Okay, it was 12 issues, but it didn't necessarily. I mean, of course, at that point, Marvel was kind of But it was just that was a toy sales gimmick anyway. Crisis on Infinite Earths in all of its tie-ins, even that, which I love the Perez art. I love my gigantic 5-foot-long Perez Alex Ross poster that I have framed on my wall that a buddy of mine gave me many years ago. The story I don't like much, and I don't like the motivation behind that book. But even still, at that point, there was a certain novelty to an event type thing. Before, the closest you got to an annual event was the JLA JSA crossover that started in the 60s, and I look forward to it every year. But again, that is an actual event because it happens at a certain point in the year, and then you look for it again for the next year. It ain't an event if it goes on a friggin' year. But after Brightest Day, they went right into that stupid RIP. I guess that was the one. And God, I mean, I can't remember all the other ones around that point. But it cost us, because at that time, from 2005-ish to around when the Screw 52 came out, I was buying a lot of DC, very little Marvel. And I really liked the Tomasi run on. I like what Johns was doing on Green Lantern, and I even liked Tomasi on Green Lantern Corps. That's saying something, because it had Kyle Rayner, and I still like the comic, and I hate Kyle Rayner.
It was well written. It had to be well written, because I know there are artists out there who love Doug Mankey's art, and I'm not one of them. There's something about it that I find distasteful, and it's not It's me personally. I'm not
Uh,
blasting him as an artist or as a storyteller. It's just I don't have whatever it is that makes people love his art. I don't have that. So, but it was well written enough that I was picking it up every month, just like you.
Tomasi's run on Nightwing, and I'm one of those that wouldn't buy a Nightwing comic for a long time because I was just one who loved Dick Grayson. As I love the idea of the Earth 2 Robin thing, and when they put him in that negligee in the Titans in the mid 90s and 80s rather, and then when he became Nightwing, it just didn't sit well with me. But I like that series, and then Detective Comics by Paul Dini. He had the good sense to do shorter stories because Batman, like Batman the Animated Series and others, works better with shorter contained stories. And it was so good, the short run that Paul Dini had on Detective Comics. There were
Do you remember
good individual comics.
There was one issue, I think it was a Christmas issue. I really think it was a Christmas issue where I don't even know that Batman's even in the meat of the book. I think it was drawn by Don Kramer, where the Joker kidnaps Tim and takes him on a joyride. Do you know the issue I'm talking about?
Not off the top of my head.
You're going to need to look it up and go back and reread it because it was written by Paul Dini, and it's even amongst the run of Paul Dini written Detective, which I thought was a decent run. That one stood out to me as a really great issue. So if you have it, I recommend you go back and reread it. I'm almost positive it was a Christmas issue because that was the point. The whole car was full of like Christmas presents, and he was like running people down and everything, kind of like Kurgan with, Brenda in the car. And it's kind of like that. And he's, in the meantime, Tim is sitting in the passenger seat. I think he was a little worse for wear with the gun to his head from the Joker while this is going on, and just a really well-written story. And Batman's barely in it, as I recall, but it's really good.
Anyway, that was a good run. I love that one, and I loved. I loved some of the stuff that that Levitz was doing with Legion, things like that, and of course, Screw 52 came along after the events had already chased me away, mostly away, but I was still buying a few books, and Screw 52 came along, and there you go. And that led to me just eventually. Now I'm at a point, and at that point, now I'm at a point where I don't buy anything. But at that point, I didn't think I could not conceive of a time in my life when I at least wouldn't go to the comic shop once a week and pick up a few titles. Varying, maybe not a lot. It varied. And if I missed a week, I'd go in the next week and grab them. I mean, I got rid of my folder because I didn't even need it. I would go in and get new books here and there. And then when that came out, I dropped it all. And I just went in there and I would buy if anything that came out, I bought some of, for example, the only things I would buy from DC were some of those series that were like Superman Adventures or that other there was a Batman one, a Superman one, and a Wonder Woman where they were sold as digital and regular comics. And they were all anthologies in the sense that they were short stories with the characters. And they were some pretty good comics because they didn't take place in the Screw 52 garbage continuum and they continuity. And they were just short stories that didn't tether themselves that much to any particular continuity. And they were in various eras. That Superman Adventures comic had a lot of good. It wasn't not all good, but it had a lot of really good ones in there. And I would buy that. I would buy the Wonder Woman one, and then to think the Batman one. I forget the name of them. One of them was Sensational Wonder Woman, I think. So some of those were pretty good. But for the most part, I wouldn't touch DC. I stuck with Astro City, and I always will. But Marvel, I think for a while about the Wade. It's not stupid. It was kind of okay for a while. The Wade Daredevil run, but then later I just dumped that. I bought a few IDW Trek books here and there, but I can't. And there weren't that much stuff coming out. Once in a while, I would just look for stuff to buy. Like I would buy some of the Dynamite stuff with Doc Savage and the Shadow and different things like that, just to have something to read. But man, the main stuff. And then of course now here I am, like about 10 years after the fact or close, And I have no need to go to a comic shop anymore. The past couple of years, I was buying some of those True Believers and some of the replica books. Just feel like I'm going to a shop to pick up some things. I buy the
They're putting
Orville,
a cancellation to that.
and actually, yeah, they're canceling a lot of that. I've been buying the Orville comic, which is kind of cool. And I've been buying Star Trek Year 5. Haven't even gone back to pick that up lately. I don't care.
Well, we're kind of in a bad situation as far as here locally where you and I are, in that the shop that we have is kind of a when it comes to back issues, it's not a shop built for back issues. It's a shop built for new issues and trades when it comes to the comic books themselves. And everything back issue and trade wise at this point is stuff that has come out in the last 15, 16 years. And it's like, well, if it was worth having, I already have it. And if it wasn't worth having, then I don't want it. And it's like, you need it. He doesn't have a collection of back issues that goes back to, say start at, latest in the mid 90s and go back, to the mid 70s, which is what you kind of really need right now to survive. I think you've got to have that 20-year period. It's like 70, or 25 years, 70 to 95, 1970 to, and if you've got a healthy collection of back issues within that period, you probably do a pretty good job of surviving, at least for a good while, because you've got enough there that people want to go back and get. But, if most of your back issues are from, say, 95 to 2010, then, there was a ton of those books printed, and who needs them? Because everybody's got them, or you never wanted them in the first place. And that's what we have here locally, and that's a bummer.
Yeah, there were a couple of shops, and they, this one of the shops that I still kind of go to sometimes, and I like the dude, and he's not the one I know. You probably know of him. Southeast Comics. I like that guy. I like Eddie.
Yeah.
He had a sale this past week, but I didn't even go to that. I know Claude did. But yeah, they have, what's his face that I won't mention the name of that I know you're referring to. He does have a lot of back issues in stock and everything. I mean, in storage, and he puts them on sale and stuff like that. But yeah,
well, what are you doing with them in a warehouse? Bring them to the damn shop and sell them. Put this crap that you have in your shop. Put that in the warehouse. Nobody's going to buy that. Maybe in 20 years, somebody will need to run a fireplace. But right now, no.
No, he doesn't. He does do it on sale. Look, I'm not defending him. I think he's an ass, but I mean, and I've known him for a long time. He used to buy comics.
Me too.
But he still, I guess they still sell some of that new crap. I can't wait to see what happens when none of that's selling at all on the shelves. I don't think any of it's selling now. So I don't know. It is a weird time. Glad I'm not in the business anymore. I never wanted to be after that anyway. But
well, there's enough people selling pops and $400 or $500 hot toys and sideshow statues that
magic cards.
Yeah, imagine you can kind of keep a business going if you kind of diversify enough, which I think he does. But
he knows what he's doing.
But as far as the comic books today, man, I don't hold out a lot of hope for the future, guys. I hope nostalgia is enough to keep your hobby going for you until you're ready to be done. Because I think it's all we're going to have.
Most of the guys that I hang out with that have known for years, all they really care about is back issues anyway. Just like like he was someone just posted here was that Gary was talking about. Yeah, Gary said a shop he knows had their best year this year and not selling new, selling back issues, and a lot of people are saying that now. And I know a lot of collectors. And yeah, it's a shame, but too bad. I mean.
Yeah, well, like
their own grave.
Yeah, well, like I said, when we had the 2016, we had a flood. I lost over $100,000 worth of comics. Probably closer to about 150 grand worth of comics. I brought out in wheelbarrows to the street for the garbage man to pick up. Along with your furniture and along with everything else you own, to take something, because your comic collection is very personal to you, to take that and have to put it to the road. For the garbage man to pick up, and they're completely saturated wet and smell of mold. And some of them have green stuff, funky stuff growing out of them. Will crush you. And I just thought, well, I'm just going to have to get trades, because for me, it's the art and the story that's important. It's not necessarily the monetary value of the books themselves. And if I have the stories and I have the trades, then at least at that point, I'll be okay. And when I started to kind of rebuild, I was doing it mostly with trades. But in the last year, all of a sudden, I'm not buying trades anymore. I'm actually being able to put like whole runs together, huge runs. You know, I mean, that Legion's run I just put together was, you're talking over almost 70 books, and I'm missing 2. And that came out of one shop. That came out of one shop.
It's amazing.
And it's just like, okay, the 2 issues I'm missing, I can pick up on mycomicshop.com, and it'll cost me less than $25 to finish it off. I'm like, all right, that's including shipping. And I'm like, sweet. So that's going to be my Christmas present to me, is finishing off my run.
Nice, nice, man.
And it's like that everywhere, though. But you know, it's just like, I need it. I want to get this back into my collection. Okay, well, let me go find. Instead of me going to try to hunt down a trade, because at this point some of the trades are getting expensive. It's like, I'm just going to go hunt down the back issues. I bet I could pick them up for a pretty good price. Turns out I can.
Richard Sullivan, my old friend, good to see you, buddy. Man, it's been a while. You know, he's a big comics guy. Good to see you, my friend. You're right. Not that, you know, the distribution is a chaos. Everything's a chaos, man. So yeah, no, absolutely, dude. It's a damn shame, but I love getting the trades. And again, I like you say, I know a lot of them are expensive sometimes, but sometimes you can find trades dirt cheap too. I mean, where you go, not always, but some, even hardcovers. And I like trades better, but if I see a hardcover dirt cheap at Ollie's like I've been lately, I still grab it, man. I mean, yeah. $20 for formerly a $100 book or whatever, omnibus or some shit like that. And
dude,
again,
I picked up, of all things, John Buscema did a really odd little fairy book called Weird World.
I remember it.
I believe it was late 70s, mid-late 70s?
Something like that, or 80s. Yeah, you're in the ballpark. Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah.
Well.
Anyway, I found the trade for it. I didn't even know there was a trade for it, but I found a trade for it. I found it at Ollie's. Really?
No kidding. Oh my! Recently? Shit.
Within the last 8 months, and
see that'll last. They got a lot of shit that just sits there, but though with something like that, it goes, man.
Yeah, and it was just like, I think I paid $3 for it. How much is this thing? It's right here. Get it.
Well, I guess I tell you about that 75th anniversary Vibranium Edition Captain America book I got at Ollie's.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you about that.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
No, I'm sorry.
Because if I go to the one here in my home, because I mean, I live about 20 minutes away from you, maybe, and I have an Ollie's really close by to where I'm at. But yeah, it's a $40 trade. I'm sorry, $35 trade.
$3.
And I paid. Well, no, actually, it was $7.
$7. Amazing.
But it was. But $35 trade for $7, and some of really unique and unusual and barely seen John Buscema art, because this wasn't on everybody's wish list when it originally came out, saying, "Oh, I have to have this." But there is some really blazing cool art in here. At first, I was like, "Is this Mike Plug? This looks like Mike Plug," and I'm like, "This is John Buscema?" No, but yeah, John Buscema. But yeah, it reads like Mike Plug. And I'm sorry if you don't know who Mike Plug is, then go out and find out, because you need to.
I love it. I love Mike Plug. It's tough for me to pick my favorite of his, but I think my favorite's probably his Monster of Frankenstein comic. Although he's done a lot of great stuff. I
just like the way Plug draws moss growing on wood.
Yeah.
And if you're a Mike Plug fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
He's unbelievable. And he didn't do much in comics anyway.
Nah, I should have drawn more Man-Thing. Should have drawn Man-Thing forever.
I love the Marvel Epic collections. I love those too, man. Sometimes I found a couple of those at Ollie's. And if anyone who doesn't have an Ollie's or don't know what we're talking about, it's called Ollie's
Discount
outlet or something like that. And They have obviously a place where you get all types of various things. They got, for really, really, household things like that for dirt cheap prices, but they have a big book section. And in that book section, as we've been talking about, it has a lot of trade paperbacks and hardcovers. And a lot of it stuff. Now again, some of it you might be really into a lot of it. A lot of it kind of is not my bag. Some of it's fairly recent stuff, but they'll have 1 million copies. And they got that Kirby book that, they have that $8 for that I forget the name of that Kirby book. It was one I was looking for a long time. They got like 10 copies of the Ollies by me now.
I want to talk about it. Because I don't know what part of the city you live in, dude, and I don't know what
I can snag it for you if I see you next time. It's $8. Maybe even I can swing that, but it's probably at the one over by you. That one we couldn't get the Vibranium edition of the Cap book there. There's also a big Kirby book that I haven't been able to get, the real gigantic one that's like that Cap book that we can't talk about.
Yeah,
and I can't find that. A buddy of mine found that one. God damn it.
Speaking of trades, your friend Miss Raquel, who lives up in Canada, the trade of the John Byrne IDW material, I found for her. I specifically bought it for her. So if you listen, Raquel, I got the book. I know I showed it to you, but yep, it's yours. I just got to figure out a way to get it to you and get it through. Get it into the mail and through customs up to you. And once we can do that at a relatively decent price, then I don't mind sending it to you. But the book wasn't terribly expensive, but I have a feeling the shipping is going to cost more than the book did.
That bad, huh?
I haven't, to be honest with you, I just got home. I've been on the road for about the last 3 weeks. And while I was out, I found it. And so I texted her or tweeted her about it and said, hey, look what I found. And she was like, oh, yay. Yeah, and anyway,
it's a big book, right?
But it's a trade. It's a trade version. It's not the hardcover.
Trade. Okay, good. Trade this.
Anyway, so with that, it's I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to send it to her, but I haven't had a chance to. I just got home. So I've got housework to do. So some home fixing to do tomorrow. I got to put up a new mailbox. And then hopefully come Monday, I can go to UPS or to the post office and see what it's going to cost to try to ship it out. I have several extra Gemini mailers that I've saved from the various Indiegogo books, Comicscape books that I've gotten. So I may try to see if it'll fit in one of those.
Excellent. Well done, man. Good stuff.
And hopefully that'll make it cheaper to ship. So it's on its way, Raquel. I don't know if you definitely probably won't get it before Christmas, but hopefully you'll get it by Thanksgiving or not Thanksgiving, for Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Well, I hope I hope you enjoy it. I think she will enjoy it. It's cool stuff. So
yeah, the Romulan stuff in that book is awesome.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, man, I think it's all in there. All the Byrne stuff, right?
Everything but the photo novels. Everything but the photo novels,
of course.
But yeah, everything else is in there.
Good stuff. Well, everyone who hung with us, and everyone who stuck around, and even the ones that didn't. We appreciate it. As always,
this is what it's like to sit in a room and talk to me about comic books, where it just kind of meanders everywhere. People talk over each other, and I cut off Mike from talking half the time, and for that I apologize. But I hope at least it was fun to listen to if you're a true comic nerd.
Damn it! I wish you hadn't apologized. Now I can't kill you for it. Damn it!
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Leon, I would kill you while you stand.
Well, I realized I probably interrupted you about 7-8 times while we were talking. So.
I will probably live with it, brother. But I'm just glad you're here, man. I appreciate having you here, buddy.
I was glad to come on. I was glad. I'm always, like I said, even whether we're online or whether we're just talking on the phone, if you want to bullshit about comics, I am your man. Good.
I remember. I miss the old days when we're doing the Geek get together. I know you came over to one of them at the Bistro Italia that we haven't.
Wednesday nights. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun with those dudes, and they just kind of. It's open, but they don't want. They don't want to do it. So I would.
I quit going.
there was a buddy of ours that was working at the local shop, even though we complained about it. The guy who was working there, I considered a friend. I don't know how good at his job he was. It's really not for me to say because I wasn't the boss. But as a person, as a human being, to talk to go into a shop who was personable with the customer, I miss the guy. I miss him a lot. I don't know if he listens to this or not. Every now and then I see him post something on Facebook. But Otto, if you're out there, miss you, buddy.
I love you, Otto. He's probably
once Otto quit the shop, that was really when the hey, let's go and hang out the bistro kind of ended. So
yeah, he never went to that too much with us anyway. But I mean, I miss Otto. Otto's good dude. I hope he's okay. But yeah, Canfield and all those guys. It was a lot of fun when we would go do that on Wednesday nights. I couldn't make it every time, but I made a good bit. I love Mike Smith and all those guys, and it was pretty fun. We filled that place up. Good food. I think the food was pretty good, and I know they're still open. I feel but yeah, they don't. A lot of them are. I think Canfield doesn't want to go for a while, so I don't know. But that was a fun time. It was for years there. We were on Wednesday, one Wednesday out of the month. The Geek.
After seeing what the Geek thing that Canfield just bought, he's going to be eating ramen noodles for a while. Did you see what he posted on Facebook?
I don't know. I haven't seen him. I don't know if we Facebook together.
Actually, Claude, our buddy Claude posted this on Facebook.
Canfield on Facebook?
I have no idea, but he may have just sent this in a Twitter DM. I don't know how Claude got the image. But for those of you out there, we have a buddy named John Canfield. Canfield, yes. When I say I'm a Mustang guy, Canfield is the Mustang guy. When the 2005 Mustang came out and they completely redesigned it, he got with another designer and they built a version of the Mustang that resembled the MRT Interceptor from Mad Max. And Ford basically took the top, 10, 12 designs, and if they liked it, they actually built the car. One of his design for the MRT Interceptor Mustang got built, and he got to go to SEMA to see his Mustang having been built. He didn't get to keep it, obviously, but somebody built it, and it's out on the road somewhere. So when I say he's a Mustang guy, this is a Mustang guy. He's never owned anything but Mustangs. And anyway, but Claude posted an image that he got. It was a hubcap, or actually it was a rim.
Was that
from
today?
The Barris Batmobile.
Oh, was that today or was it recently?
Either today or yesterday, but it's from the George Barris Batmobile.
He is a Batmobile freak. Well, who isn't? But I love it. But yeah, he does love that. So yeah, well, I don't know if he Facebooks or not, but. So,
I don't either, but I would just looked at that and was going, I'd be poor.
Oh God, yeah. Well, now I'm at the write his ass and say, text his ass, hey man, I want to see that thing. Text me a picture of it. Shit.
I think he's slowly but surely working to buy George Barris Batmobile. He's just doing it one part at a time. That's my plan. That's what I think his plan is.
Wow, that's friggin' amazing. I got to find it. I'll tell Claude to send it to me. Man, Jesus Christ, he cannot stop posting.
Claude, no.
He plays too much on Facebook.
But yeah, he does. But you know what? It's honestly half the things he posts I kind of roll my eyes at. The other half, he's actually a very funny man. So I'm glad he does post as often as he does, because that's how I start my day with my coffee, as I go through my Facebook and look at Claude posts.
He is an old pawpaw. Yeah, I got a warning. A couple of weeks ago, I just tried to put, it was in one of his posts. I tried to put a comment where I was threatening a joke about kicking his old man ass, and Facebook got mad at me. Like, Jesus Christ.
Well, you and I were debating the Tom Cruise mask scenario today on Facebook, and I got an email warning from them saying that I was being too much of being mean.
Why?
Should stop it.
Yeah. What was the reason for it? They think I was inciting violence.
I was being subversive, I guess. I don't know.
You didn't incite violence, did you?
No, I mean, I couldn't tell your demeanor on the other end of our debate, but
Huh? What
I
now?
said I wasn't sure of your demeanor on the other end of our debate, but I was just kind of calm, cool, and collected about it. It's like, well, this is kind of what I think.
Well, no, I was advocating that Tom Cruise should have been, in fact. So no, I'm totally good. I'm fine with it, but I don't know how Facebook. I mean, I thought you had to like say "fuck you" or or I'll kick your ass or some kind of shit like that. I don't understand if you're talking about something.
I think Facebook does what Facebook wants to do, and there's really nobody tells Facebook what to do. Very much like a lot of our social media today. So it's just like as of January 31st, most of the guys that I follow on Twitter are going to Parler. I don't know that I'm going to completely shut down my Twitter account, but if you want to see like artwork or anything of mine after the 31st, like if I keep my Twitter open, it's just going to be for the DMs. But anything I post is going to be over on Parler.
I can't.
It has nothing to do about about politics per se, other than the fact that I want the freedom to be able to post whatever I want to post, as long as I'm not inciting violence or doing something really stupid. I should be able to open my mouth and say what I want to say. If you don't like what somebody says, well, then just ignore it and move on with your day. It's people can have an opinion. That's just the way it goes, and you can tell me, I don't agree with your opinion. It's like, okay, well, you don't have to. I kind of see it this way. If you see it that way, then that's just how it's the way it is.
What was wrong with our exchange about that? We weren't even cussing or anything. I don't get it.
No, I don't either. Basically, what it was you believe that even though Cruz was probably right in his sentiment, him screaming and yelling like that made him look like an asshat. And my point of view was, I think they've already been shut down twice. They've lost millions of dollars already, and he's a producer on the film, which means it's his money and ass on the line. And not only that, but the insurance company is saying if you get something I'm assuming to the effect of, hey, we can shut you down permanently, and then all the money goes away and you never have a movie. So it felt like he needed to, and he may be feeling the heat. So, having probably told these cats on more than one occasion, which is how it's kind of reported, he finally lost his shit and went off on these guys and screamed and hollered. And I don't necessarily advocate screaming and hollering at employees in public to pull them aside to do it. But if they're not the only ones making the problem, and they've got other people making a problem too, but these people are the ones you're going to decide to make an example to where everybody knows. And I think that's what happened. And
he says they didn't want Tom Cruise to yell. Yeah, Facebook. That's true. Facebook didn't want Tom Cruise to yell at him.
Maybe. I mean, that's what basically the sentiment was. Is like, he's not wrong, but he shouldn't have yelled. And I'm like, I don't know. I think sometimes you got to yell,
Yeah, I don't agree.
And that's kind of the way I saw it. It was just like, it sounded to me like he's already said, don't do this, we're going to get in trouble, or don't do this, we're going to get in trouble. And if I've said it 2 or 3 times, all right, well, now I've got to yell at your ass. And I think that's where he got.
I've had so many jobs where I've been screamed at and yelled at worse than that. I've had, been through all that kind of crap, and I didn't put up with it. But
yeah, well, dude, if you can't handle that, if you can't handle what Cruz did, do not work for a restaurant.
I've worked.
Do not.
I was at the car business, dude. The most horrible, cutthroat bunch of fuckers. So all I'm saying is, if you're going to put up with it, that's fine. I heard, in fact, he did it again. By the way.
Yeah, well, he was upset that the
they recorded him, right? Oops. So but I don't care that we have a different take on it. I don't care that we disagree, because I do think it was classless. I think it's unnecessary. I think he's just fucking showboating. I think he's just a big phony pussy. But anyway,
I think he's nutty as a payday. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I said.
Not that far off. I just don't think you talk to people like that. But it's fine. I mean, if you're going to put up with it, that's up to those people. A lot of them didn't like it. But here's my thing about all that. There were a couple of people out. The only reason I even posted the thing, because I should know better by now. I weren't posting shit like that on Facebook anyway. But the only reason I kind of reacted to it was not because of Cruz per se. I don't give a shit what he does. There were a lot of people, and there were people, I'm not going to mention names, but people whose their videos I love their channels, that went on, one in particular, whom I like a lot, went on and basically was called it the rant glorious, and thinks basically he's a fucking superhero for it. And if you don't agree that if you think you're basically pronouns in bio pussy if you're saying he shouldn't yell at people. It's like, well, then I'm one and Gary's one and Az is one, I guess. But and I don't care that he and a couple other people I like thought this was a wonderful thing that he did. I don't get it, but fine. It's just that you're a pussy if you just don't think you should yell at somebody. Fuck that shit, man. And the guy who did this, I'm like, look, you're a lot younger than me, kid. I've been yelled at more than you ever will be. And I don't get it. So that's all I'm saying. That was kind of my reaction to it.
Oh, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that he did it. I just think there does come a point in time where I think such actions can be necessary, that you need to get the attention of your crew. There are millions of, and this isn't a normal business where, your business is going to bring in, say, 5 to 10 or 15 grand in a day. When they lose a day, they lose hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million a day. And if they get shut down for a week, it's costing them millions. And when you're talking that kind of money, you're talking investors and insurance companies, and the fact that if they get busted, does that mean that the insurance company is going to say Hollywood doesn't know what it's doing, and then nobody can do it because now you're the guinea pig for all of Hollywood? You got to be that much on your P's and Q's. And, it's just kind of like, I don't know exactly what the scenario is, but the scenario can be to a point to where it's justified to sit there and yell at your people. And it's not good, but sometimes it's necessary. And I don't. From what I heard, from what it was reported, I felt like he kind of got to the point where it was necessary. So
I heard others say that it wasn't that big of a breach. Now, again, they could have handled it in a lot of ways, but he
could just be acting like a child. That's very much possible.
Here's where, in his case, I find it dangerous. But I'll tell you, like to your point that I agree that it's necessary. Let's see, Vince Lombardi, Bill Parcells, coaches of football teams trying to coach guys to be tough, hard-ass badasses, drill sergeants, that kind of stuff. And, look, of course, they can't do that in the NFL now, of course. They would never. Nobody does that now. But, certainly I can believe it when it comes from hard-ass guys like that and stuff. I mean, Vince Lombardi, the way those coaches, Bill Parcells, I've made this case a long time as a big fan of NFL history. There ain't one coach who's ever won a Super Bowl, except with one or two exceptions, that is not that was a nice guy.
No,
they are pricks, except for Tony Dungy. He's the only excuse. He inherited a lot of that team. So just saying. So the grinders, man, and so we're both. You're not that much younger than me. That you didn't come from a time that was hard edged and you didn't hurt your fifis if somebody yelled at you and shit. So
dude, I worked for a guy who ran a seafood restaurant in Baton Rouge, one of the top seafood restaurants in all of Baton Rouge. Mm-hmm. Okay, his name's on the sign. If you live in the area, you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, working there as a waiter, he was they didn't have heat lamps on the line, so you had 30 seconds or less from when the food was put on the plate, out of the fryer or out of the broiler or off the grill. And it hit the window. You had less than 30 seconds or less to grab it, put it on the platter, and go get it to the customer. And if it sat for more than 30 seconds, and that man was in there and he was timing it, heaven help you. And I walked into the kitchen door one day to find a metal plate sticking to the wall to the left, to the right of me, like a throwing star, and stuffed shrimp splattered to the wall to the left of me as he threw the thing, just as I walked in the door. And it just so happened that they went on either side of me instead of at me. And I just kind of turned around, walked the other way, because obviously I was coming in there to get that food. And it wasn't from my table, but I was going to help run the food to a table. And went in, plop, plop, turned right back around, and then went to the table and said, there's a complication in the kitchen, and your food will be done in about another 5-10 minutes, and I apologize for the wait. And then I went in there and didn't go anywhere until the food came up, and I told him, I said, I'm going to make sure it goes out the second it hits the deal. And you know what? It made him happy that I was willing to stay there and do it. And nothing was ever said about it either way, one way or another. This is what he wants. It's his name on the sign. It's his money. He's the one that signs my paycheck. Just make the boss happy. That's all you can do.
I could only think of one restaurant that could be with a man's first and last name on it. So yeah, I get it. Initials M and A, right?
That would be the one.
Oh, gotcha. T.O. for NFL Today. Yeah, that's pretty much it. They're all a bunch of pampered brat bit. And, that's why, since I've unfortunately had to give them up this year, and it's killing me because after 50 years of loving that league, I still just go on YouTube and watch old game of the week footage and things like that with, NFL films. Well, God bless them. So, yeah. That's the only way I can watch football now. And it's such a pussy game now, too. Good God, you can't even touch anybody. So,
Nah, I've got the greatest hits of the Pittsburgh Steelers on my DVD shelf. Watch Jack Lambert knock people silly. That's a good night for me. That's 2 hours of good times.
I was a while back. I watched it when NFL Network reran the entire Super Bowl 13. When it was, the rematch of Dallas and Pittsburgh. And I was going, Jesus Christ, there's about like 16 Hall of Famers, including both coaches on this field. And I'm watching Bradshaw get the living shit. There are a couple times he got hit again. He's dead. And of course, I knew it. I watched it as a kid. I watched that game. But I mean, I'm watching him going, now, with all the years after that and seeing how they can't touch quarterbacks now, I'm watching it going, I don't see how he lived. I don't see how Terry Bradshaw, nutty though he is even alive today. Because they're in that game alone, in a lot of games, because he did get locked out of a lot of games. He didn't even start that first year that he ended up winning the Super Bowl, the first time he won it. But he got the fuck knocked out of him so bad in that game. I'm saying he's not even moving. And so does Staubach, by the way. So, yeah.
Little Abner. Little Abner, they called him. He was a hayseed from Shreveport, Louisiana. And
yeah. Oh, Staubach. Oh God, yeah. Yep.
No. Bradshaw was a star.
Bradshaw. Sorry. Yeah, he was from Louisiana. He went, and he was, man. They made fun of him so much in that league. Was it Thomas Hollywood? Of course, he got the last laugh. Said Bradshaw couldn't spell the word cat if you spotted in the C and the T. Got 4 rings on his finger, dude. And I hated those Steelers because back then, since the Saints were garbage and usually out of the playoffs by October.
Yeah.
As someone who loved football as a kid, you had 2 choices in the 70s. You were either going to be with the Cowboys or you were going to be with the Steelers. I hate the Cowboys later, but I loved those Tom Landry, Roger Staubach Cowboys and hated those Steelers. But those Steelers of the 70s were the greatest football dynasty of all time. And
Jack Lambert was always my favorite. He was not always the most massive guy on the field, but he was missing his 2 front teeth, and he was the scariest looking guy on the field. And he knew how to use his body to, when he hit you, he punished you. You did not want to get hit by Lambert again. And he had a nasty habit of being a smart player and knowing where to be where the ball is going to be. Like he knew the play. He knew the offensive lineup. He knew which direction the play was going to go and what play they were going to call. And he had a nasty habit of being where the ball was going to be. And people just got hurt. I mean, he was like, that's it. Keep your ass down. Just don't get up. That was kind of the attitude he had. And I love watching that man hit people. It's just.
Oh, I mean, I think he was meaner than Mean Joe Green.
Yeah, he really was.
And Mean Joe Green earned that name now, but that was when men played that one. People say I cannot stand when people say, well, those guys were nowhere near the athletes that they have today. Well, steroids and shit. Yeah, well, you know what? They don't hit like they did back then either.
That linebacker core, you had Mean Joe Green, you had
Jack Ham,
Jack Ham, and Jack Lambert.
Lambert, Ham, and Russell.
Defensive, yeah,
unbelievable. And on the line, you had L.C. Greenwood and Mean Joe Green. I mean,
yeah, that's right. Green was on the line. It's been a while since I've watched.
Yeah, number 75 with the coat, the kid, that famous coat.
Thanks, Mean Joe.
Well, you also had Mel Blanc, who they changed the rules for. In 1978, they made the Mel Blanc rule because wide receivers were getting decapitated running over the middle, and they had to change that. You had to back off, and you couldn't hit them over after 5 yards. That's why passing yards went up. Because Mel Blanc, they called it the Mel Blanc rule. Don Shula called it that. He was part of the rules committee. He said, look, he's killing every time somebody runs across the middle, he takes their head off. And that's how Darryl Stingley with the Patriots got crippled for life because in the game against the Raiders. I think it was George Atkinson or whoever hit him. So, yeah, I mean, it was the game.
Well, as a Steelers fan, I hate the Ravens, okay, because the Cleveland Browns, that's not a real football team as far as I'm sorry if you're listening and you're a Browns fan.
My buddy,
but I don't see that as a real I don't see the Browns as a real football team anymore. The Baltimore Ravens are the football team, and I hate them because it's in my blood. And I remember what's his name? Roy Clark. About 10 years ago, it was like the last year he played that the Steelers actually won the Super Bowl that year. Hit a guy over the middle with and violated that rule. Almost got thrown out of the league. And I don't even think he got a penalty for it. And I couldn't believe he didn't get a penalty for it. Steelers hit a Raven wide receiver, and I'm playing it in my head, and the hit was so hard, and I think he caught the ball. I don't even, forget 5 yards. I don't even think his feet hit the ground yet, and it was ugly, and I think it was the year later that year when they played the Ravens again for the last game of the season was the one where Roethlisberger got his nose broken, turned sideways, and straightened it with a ballpoint pen on the sideline and went back into play. And the Steelers won that game too. It was awesome. That was my favorite football game of all time.
Richard Sullivan, I just want you to know, buddy, that I'm not with Mark C on that. My buddy Richard Sullivan is a huge, long-suffering Cleveland Browns fan, and I was happy for the Browns when they got there. It kept their name and they got their team back in '99. That said, except for the Detroit Lions, you guys have been the longest suffering fans in the league. So I'm glad you're having a good year, even though I've had to give up football for reasons. But
hey, I'm right now. I just want to see the rest of the Cincinnati Bengals. I want to see the team fail so bad after what they've done to their brand new quarterback, because they got a Cadillac, they got a Ferrari, and they broke it after taking it for a test drive.
Yeah, poor old Joe. You're right, Doug. I'm sorry, we got off on the geek talk to the jock talk. You're right, because I used to do a football show in addition to the geek shows on my old platform on BTR, Doug, but I had to give it up. But geek stuff is my first love, Star Trek and comics and all that stuff, and Doctor Who, Star Wars, things like that. But I do love the NFL. I just hate the new NFL now, and I've given that up. But I just, when it gets to talking about the old stuff, I can do it forever. I apologize, man. But I want to thank everyone who was here with us tonight. Douglas Oberg, my good friend, I thank you for being here. Mark with a C, thank you for being here, buddy. Only time I've ever yelled at someone at work was when they were doing something. Oh, I got to get himself hurt. I hear you there. Oh, cool. Thanks, Doug. Richard Sullivan, my friend, I'm glad you popped in. Everyone who was listening to us tonight, thank you. Mark with a C, I think I already said that. D.D. Myers popped in earlier. D.D. Myers, I'm sorry I missed you there. Thank you so much. I miss it sometimes. I know Eric K had to run. Vigilante Williamson was here earlier. I thank him. My great friend Steve Mitchum, I thank him. Jake D popped in earlier. I thank him. Please check out all those channels. There are links below. All of these people's channels. And please always make sure you still subscribe, because YouTube is the leading subscribers. They are. I mean, I noticed it happened to Paulie, and it's happened to a lot of people recently. Saturday night we'll be back 8 p.m. Excuse me. We'll be 9 Central. Sorry, with the wonderful, the beautiful, fantastic Raquel Briggs. We're going to talk about why we love Star Trek. I figured, Christmas is the season of love, and we love Star Trek, and we'll make announcements about our plans for the future Star Trek shows. Monday night, it's Christmas with the superheroes. We'll be geeking out again, and I won't bring in the NFL. I promise. We'll talk about stuff that's geeky with superheroes, and not just superheroes, other geek-related things that involve Christmas. How about that? It'll be our little Christmas party. So Mark with a C. No, I got Mark with I'm getting you guys confused. You look exactly the same. Well, I'm just kidding, but you do. You did once have a thing avatar, so
No, sir. We are no relation.
Yeah, no relation. But Mark C., thank you, sir, for being here with us tonight.
No, thank you for having me, and thank the chat for putting up with me. Appreciate it tonight.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas to you all. If I don't see you Saturday, if I don't see you Monday night, simply have a wonderful Christmas time. And thank you to the great Stone Loki for this outro. Good night, everyone.